Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the move of What If Deku and Todoroki rejected the stars? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya only ever wanted to be a hero. He watched heroes, he studied heroes, he dreamed of heroes. All Izuku Midoriya ever wanted was to be a great hero. No, the greatest hero. The #1 hero saving people with a smile, but then, all of the boys' and girls' quirks started developing. One after another, Everyone's but his. You'll never be a hero, the world mocked. You'll never be able to help anyone. You don't even have a quirk. You're weak. If I can't be a hero to you, I won't. I'll be a hero to others, a hero to the ones you despise so much, he said to the world. I'll be the hero of all villains. The #1 hero. And he smiled. Izuku Midoriya went from studying heroes to studying the villains he saw in the papers and on TV. He learned their names, their quirks, their background stories, their strengths, their weaknesses, where they hung out. He began to think of it as his own quirk. To have the complete knowledge of any and every one. To be all-knowing. Hey kid, he heard one evening as he lingered around an empty park. It wasn't the nicest neighborhood and it was getting kind of late, so he knew he was in the right place at the right time for finding a new muse. He hadn't made any additions to his journal in quite some time. Shigaraki Tamura. I would never have imagined I'd meet you of all people, Izuku responded with a big smile. I see you. Lingering around crime scenes, smiling when the villains get away, writing in that little notebook, he said pointing to the book in Izuku's hand. Ah, you're interested in me? That makes me so happy. You're a weird kid. What's your name? My name? Why would that matter? You know mine. What's your quirk? Izuku. This is my quirk. He held up the notebook. I know everything about everyone. Even you. And what do you plan to do with that? Izuku smiled, big and bright, his eyes squeezing shut. I'm going to be your hero. Shigaraki grinned. Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to hear more about that. Sure. Actually, how would you feel about coming to chat with some of my friends too? You're interesting. I think you'd be a nice fit with the group. Izuku rose from his seat on the swing with a smug smile. His eyes full of mischief. This was what he had been waiting for. Acknowledgement by the League of Villains was the foot in the door he needed for his dream to come true. Is it me fitting with the group or the group fitting with me? Don't get cocky, kid. I hate cocky brats. If you're coming, come. If you're not, don't. Shigaraki said, turning and walking through the grass towards the street. Izuku got up and trailed behind him casually, not in a rush to be by his side. He knew how useful his quirk was, and he knew Shigaraki knew it was useful too. Worst case scenario, they separated and his meeting with the League was delayed until he was found again, and they would definitely find him again. So, this is the League, Izuku said. When they arrived, it seemed like the building was completely abandoned, but once inside it led to a small yet comfortable bar. Hi. He smiled. Oh my god. He's so cute. A girl with blonde buns gushed from her seat. An edgy-looking boy with scars and black hair sat in the corner offering Izuku a gaze and a grunt before reverting his attention to his phone. Toga Himiko, Dabi. Izuku pointed to each of them with a knowing look. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Dabi's attention was back on him, his eyebrows furrowed. Who was this kid and how could he know who he was? He moved quietly, almost non-existent. If anything, he figured he would know his brother before he knew him. Where is your brother? Izuku asked as if reading his mind. I would figure you'd keep better tabs on him, what with you guys' father being the #1 hero and all. Don't talk about things you don't know about, Dabi bit. Izuku smiled wide with a giggle. Are you so sure that I don't know, Dabi? You look like you're not. Shigaraki Tamura, are you sure about this? Izuku turned to the cloud of dark smoke, dressed neatly in a shirt and tie, his vest buttoned and his speech perfectly proper. Kurojiiri, It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Yes, I'm sure. If I wasn't sure he wouldn't be here. He could be of great use to us. Especially with keeping track of this idiot's kid brother. Shigaraki responded. Izuku's eyes flashed with amusement and his smile widened. Oh, so I was right, Dabi. Dabi. Every time Izuku said his name, his tone became more playful. I'd like to meet him too. When will he be around? He smirked. Who says you'll still be here when that time comes? Izuku sat on one of the tables, one foot in a chair, and leaned back on his hands, tilting the chair with his other foot. I'm positive I'll be here. I like him. Can I stab him? Toga asked with a light blush coloring her cheeks. The wildness in her eyes was endearing to Izuku. She was strange, he liked it. Only if you let me stab you first. He liked his lips and stuck his tongue out. She bounced in her seat and clapped, and just as Izuku expected, she was in front of him almost instantly, knife to his throat. Before she knew it though, he already had his own knife out, the point mere centimeters from her right eye. Like I said, only if you let me stab you first, he whispered with a grin. Marry me. Pee over cat. He winked. She laughed and went back to her seat, twirling around and swinging her feet. Oh my god, Kurogiri, how can you not love him? We have to keep him. He's dangerous. Kurogiri rationalized. And FING annoying, Dabi added in. He's an asset. Tell them about yourself. Shigaraki waved his hand. I'll make this easy. My name is Izuku. As for my quirk, I know everything about just about any hero or villain. Once I see them and they strike my interest, I learn everything there is to know. That includes all of you here. Now, that doesn't mean I know your personalities or anything like that, that's the downside to it. I also don't automatically look at you and know. I have to study you, so it takes time. On the bright side though, I'm pretty cute. Dabi scoffed. He'd be useful in obtaining information. We'd never have to actually get our hands dirty. He's a sure thing. Information on heroes and villains we may want to connect with to increase the league's numbers. He looks to be similar in age to the other one, so they could go in together. He's more personable, so making friends with those other brats will be easy. It's a sure thing, Shigaraki explained. The others nodded. It all made sense. Send him in to get all of the information he could on the world's heroes in the making along with the current pros, bring that information back, and they have gold. This kid could pave the way for the ultimate hero annihilation. But how is he supposed to even get in? He won't pass that exam. Kurogiri questioned. The others hummed questioningly too. He doesn't need to be in the hero course, just in the building. We already have access to the hero course. I like the way this sounds, Izuku muttered. If I'm a part of the plan by collecting intel on the heroes and potential heroes, I'd be making a big impact on the results of this whole thing. I have a high likelihood of saving the day if things go wrong. I can be the hero here. Yes, this may work for me. Jesus FNG Christ, Shigaraki. He's FND crazy. Dabi rolled his eyes. Thinking aloud doesn't make a person crazy. Toga said, trying to stick up for Izuku. Oh, I'm sorry. I tend to think aloud to really process my thoughts. Don't mind me. The door creaked open and slammed back shut. A tall boy with red and white hair and mismatched eyes fluttered through. Izuku's mouth parted only slightly at the sight and color flourished on his cheeks. He'd only ever seen him one time, in the background on the news. There was a murder one night, burned to death, and the corpse was frozen solid. They had to spend days chipping the body out to bury the guy. He only saw the flicker of red and white as he left the scene, but he knew it was him. He was stunning in every way, and he never even gave a glance in Izuku's direction. Here, he handed Dabi a plastic bag. A pharmacy's name was written on it, and Dabi smiled only slightly when he looked at the contents. The boy turned, this time noticing Izuku sitting on the table, twirling his knife with an amused look on his face as the light bounced off of the blade and hit his eyes. Who is this? It's nice to finally meet you, Todoroki Shudo. I know so little about you. Who the F do you think you are? Shudo's ice-cold hand wrapped around Izuku's neck tightly, but not enough to strangle him. He didn't look all that angry, more so annoyed than anything. Kankiwai. Izuku grinned. He grabbed Shudo's wrist, running his thumb over the veins. Relax, Xiaochan. I don't want to fight. Let's be friends. Shudo snatched his hand back with a scowl. Izuku beamed at him, the red marks from his Shudo's fingers still all over his neck. You're quite pretty, Xiaochan. I look forward to spending more time together. Annoying, right? Dabi said. Shudo was silent, staring into Izuku's deep green eyes. The longer he stared, the more familiar they became. I know you. No, you don't, Izuku laughed. But you can definitely get to know me. He bit his lip. This isn't FING matchmaker. We have a job to do, Shigaraki said. Toga giggled at his frustration and he glared at her warningly. She threw her hands up saying, I don't want any problems. Shut up, Dabi said, and she stuck her tongue out, pulling the skin under her eye to tease him. You're such a kid. Yes, says you. Shut up so I can get this over with already, Shigaraki yelled. All right, here's the plan. He gave them all of the details and went over their roles in it all. Shudo was to apply to UA as a second-year transfer student. With his grades, his smarts, and his quirk, he was a shoo-in. Not to mention his last name. Izuku needed to get into UA too, just not necessarily the hero program. He just needed to be in the building, close enough to get to know everyone and be trusted. With Shudo's personality, it would be hard for him to make friends on his own, so Izuku was perfect to fill in what he lacked. They'd be model students, heroes in the making, while feeding all of the heroes' plans to the league until they had everything they needed to crush them. Easy, peasy, lemon squeezy. Sounds doable, Shudo nodded. Piece of cake. Izuku grinned. I'm glad you're on board. The exams are coming up soon, be ready. And Shigaraki left it at that. The day of the entrance exams came soon enough. He registered for the late afternoon slot because mornings just weren't his thing, so when he arrived there weren't too many people. Izuku strolled through the building with his Sethi, them talking all about the different activities and clubs that were in this building. It was an off day for current students, so it was quiet. Super quiet. He tried to take in as much of his surroundings as possible, especially when they passed the gym and his eyes landed on a mess of spiky blonde hair. This is too good, he said with a sinister smile. The boy turned, his eyes focused on zipping his hoodie, and Izuku stared, waiting for him to look up and meet his eyes. With time, he finally did, confused and surprised, maybe even a little angry. After leaving middle school, Katsuki went on to UA's hero program while Izuku went to a neighborhood high school for something to do. According to Katsuki, Izuku could never be anything, especially not a hero, so to see him there was complete insanity. What the foo? Kaken. Izuku said happily. It's been too long. Deku? What the hell are you doing here? I'm going to be a hero, silly. I have to go now though. Bye-bye. Izuku waved, leaving Katsuki standing in the hall dumbfounded. He skipped to the testing room and skimmed the crowd before taking a seat and waited. Not long after, Shudo was skirted in, chewing gum and dragging his feet. Apparently, Shudo was not good at playing the role of an excited student ready to do their best and be the greatest hero they could be. No wonder Shigaraki was sure he couldn't make friends. Pretending was just not a thing for him. He sat down next to Izuku without acknowledging him and rested his chin in his hand on the desk. Way to act like a hero, Izuku smirked. Shudo rolled his eyes and popped his gum. I just want to get this over with, to be honest. We will now begin the written exam, the proctor began over the loudspeaker. Shudo and Izuku groaned, earning irritated glances from the other test takers. Shudo screwed his face at them and mouthed, "Pieces off," and Izuku covered his mouth, trying not to laugh too loudly as the proctor went on. Ready, start. Izuku flew through the test, circling answer after answer until he was the first one done, leaving the test where it lay and bouncing out of the testing room, everyone staring at him in awe. Shudo was out right behind him. He sighed when he flipped the test over and saw that the sick amount of freaking questions was just not ending. He scribbled in answers just to fill in the blanks and got up, handing his test in and letting the proctor know Izuku left his on the table, playing it off like he just didn't know he had to turn it in. Once the written portion of the exam was over, there was a short break before starting the practical portion. Did you do good enough? Shudo asked, standing over Izuku as he sat on the stairs, sipping a carton of milk as he scrolled lazily through his phone. Izuku looked up into Shudo's eyes and giggled before he even said anything. "You look good from this angle." "Jesus Christ," Shudo mumbled, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Can you ever be serious?" "I'm always serious, baby." Shudo frowned and kicked Izuku's milk out of his hand before storming off with an audible huff. "Okay. See you later, Shaochin." Izuku yelled after him, a grin plastered on his face. His smile grew even bigger when he saw Katsuki passing by the outside of the gate. They made eye contact, Katsuki stopping in his tracks to study Izuku the way he knew he was studying him. They stared at each other, silent and waiting for the other to make a move, until another boy with bright red hair skipped over to Katsuki, grabbing his arm and smiling with so much happiness emanating from him he could make a zoo full of birds sing. The boy looked at Izuku, and back at Katsuki, Izuku assuming he was questioning who that was staring at him. "I'll see you again soon, Kaken," Izuku said to himself as he got up to head back to the testing area, kicking the milk carton along the way. Shudo and Izuku mixed themselves into the crowd waiting for the proctor to announce the start of the practical exam. Izuku yawned, looking around at the crowd of students, praying that their quirks didn't fail them today and they didn't ruin their one shot at being a great hero. What a joke! The proctor over the loudspeaker explained the directions while Shudo stood on the other side of the group, kicking around in the dirt. 3. The proctor began. 2. The other test takers got into position, Izuku backed up, and Shudo spit his gum out into the dirt. 1. They both groaned. Start. The other test takers darted off to take out the first couple targets. Izuku backed into the wall, leaning against it and smiling at the other kids scrambling around. Shudo walked through the arena looking for the targets worth the most points. He whistled while he walked until he came across a row of about 7 huge targets he was sure were worth the most points. They were tall and wide, daunting to any regular student just getting their feet wet. They were just sitting there as if waiting for their time to shine once the lower point targets were gone. They clicked on, sensing his presence, and he smirked. Too easy. He made a sharp blast of ice from his right hand, tearing through them all at once, and chuckled to himself. He put his hands back in his pockets and walked back through the arena, freezing anything that came in his path. Izuku was still leaning against the wall when he got back. He hadn't moved an inch since the test started, beside pulling out his phone to play a tap music game. Shudo pulled up next to him, leaning against the wall too, to watch the other testers run like mad through the arena. "Way to act like a hero," Shudo deadpanned. Izuku snorted. "Did you do good enough?" "Shut up." 2 minutes left, the proctor announced. Shudo pulled out his phone too, swiping and skimming, as bored as can be. 1 minute left. "I'm sleepy," Shudo said, rubbing his thumb and index finger together. "Time is up." "Thank God," Izuku said, rolling his eyes. "I want to go home." They were skirted with the rest of the group to listen to an unbelievably boring lecture about the future, blah blah blah. Afterward, Shudo started heading towards the station, Izuku right behind him. "Hey," Izuku called. Shudo ignored him, continuing to walk but slowing down just a bit. "Hey," Izuku yelled louder. "What do you want?" Shudo yelled back. "I have a question." Izuku ran in front of him and turned around to walk backwards. "Why are you doing this?" "Don't ask me that stupid sheet. That's a story for another time." Izuku hummed. "You sure know how to read between the lines." "Granted, it is a valid question. Why would the boy with everything give it all away?" "So, are you gonna answer it?" They were quiet again, Izuku still walking backwards to stare at Shudo, and Shudo ignoring his stare to look over his head at where he's walking. "Move." Shudo waved his hand around. "Didn't I tell you not to ask me that?" Izuku laughed, stopping in his tracks, making Shudo run straight into him. He placed his hand on his chest and smiled. "Why are you so mean to me, Shaochin?" He grabbed the string of his sweatshirt and liked his lips. "I'm growing on you, yeah? That's why you're not trying to kill me, right?" Shudo rolled his eyes. "Go home." He pointed to the train and slapped Izuku's hand from his chest. "It's getting late. Worried about me getting home in time to help my mommy with dinner? What a good boy." Shudo groaned and walked off. Izuku thought he'd be going to the station too, but something must have changed his mind on the way there. Aren't you going home too? Izuku yelled after him. Mind your business. Say hi to your brother for me. As a matter of fact, tell him to call me. I bet he'd be more fun. Go home. Shudo yelled. Izuku actually did go home. He went home and lazed around his messy bedroom. All Might posters with XCD-out faces and scratched-out eyes on the walls, along with headless figurines on the desk and dressers, some covered in red paint and some missing limbs. Blackout curtains hid him from the sun and black sheets made the bed. He plopped down, his eyes closing and a small smile on his face. The school he always dreamed of, how ironic. He knew he'd fail the practical exam, but that was a given when he signed up. He knew that he aced that written exam though, and that would save him. General studies was no problem. All he had to do now was wait for the official results to start the next part of the plan. Izuku, you got mail. His mother yelled from the kitchen. He crept out of his room yawning and scratching his stomach under his shirt. It was Tuesday and he was already running late for school. He figured what was another hour or two. Worst case scenario, he'd just go tomorrow. No biggie. His mother sighed, handing him the envelope. I wish you would care more about your education. Missing so much school really is not. I get it. He put his hand up. You've said it 1,000 times already. I'll go just for you, Mom. Okay. She smiled. Thank you, honey. You know I just want the best for you. Yeah. He took the envelope and went back to his room, shutting the door and flicking on the light. The UA symbol was big and clear in the corner. Finally, he got the results of the exam. The next step on his path to officially being a member of the League of Villains. It has been a little over a week since he's last spoken to Shigaraki or anyone. He had been to their hideout a time or two since the exam, but they weren't as responsive as he had hoped. We need to know you're worth it before we invest any more time in you, Shigaraki told him the last time he went by there. Everyone here proved themselves. Prove yourself to me. Since then, he made himself scarce, allowing them to think about his worth as he waited for the proof, and now it was here. He took the disc out of the envelope and put it into his computer to play. Izuku Midoriya, blah, blah, blah. He let it play as he went to the bathroom and brushed his teeth. He came back to, performance in the practical portion of the exam was far below mediocre. Your perfect score on the written exam showed your true intelligence and dedication. Understand the practical portion can be tough for students with mental quirks. Blah blah blah. He fast-forwarded to the end of the video because man, this was boring. Just get to the point. Again, welcome to, we look forward to, he shut it off and grinned. Just like he thought. Of course, they would take him for general studies, he was a borderline genius, and that exam really wasn't hard. He tossed on his school uniform and grabbed his backpack, sure not to forget the letter from UA, and headed to the front door to slip his shoes on and dip out, ignoring his mother's calls for him to eat something. Izuku. Oh my goodness. School was so boring. The curriculum was boring, the kids were boring, the teachers were boring, and the days were just so long. He was halfway there when he decided the day was already almost over. What was even the point in going anymore? Instead of going to school, hanging out with the League of Villains sounded like a much better option. He waltzed right in, taking his place as a rightful member, no more excuses. It was his time. Izuku. Toga jumped up and hugged him, spinning around. It's been like a week. Izuku laughed, hugging her back and spinning with her. And here I thought we were rid of you for good, Dabi said. I missed you, Dabi, Izuku said sweetly as he walked over to sit in the seat next to him. Did you miss me too? He placed his hand on his knee and squeezed gently. God. Dabi swiped his hand away. Can you ever just, not? He folded his arms and looked away with a huff. Izuku giggled. Where's Xiaochen? He went to school today? Why are you asking about him? Dabi snapped. Izuku thought for a moment and grinned, looking Dabi up and down. Interesting. Screw you. Get away from me. You guys, Toga dragged. Are you staying with us, Izuku? I don't want to lose you. She pouted. Himiko, baby, don't worry about me leaving you with these losers. He looked around the room, only Kurojairi and Dabi there. No offense. He stuck his tongue out. Christ, Dabi groaned, rubbing his forehead. Oh, Zuzu. Toga said. Oh, Coco. He skipped over to her and they hugged again, spinning and jumping in circles, laughing. That would actually be up to Shigaraki, Kurogyari said as he dried off glasses behind the bar. I did my job. I'm not going anywhere. Izuku assured them both. Dabi shook his head and rolled his eyes just as Shigaraki walked in, Shudo holding the door and coming in behind him. He was dressed in his school clothes still. Private school. Only the best for the prince. Shouchin! Izuku yelled. He ran to Shudo, throwing his arms over his shoulders and forcing him into a hug. Shudo instinctively grabbed his waist to push him off of him, Izuku's arms still reaching out. Relax. Shudo nodded. Izuku pouted and folded his arms. Come on, we're friends now, and friends hug. Oh my if I hug you, will you leave me alone? Izuku nodded eagerly, putting his arms back out. Fine. Shudo rolled his eyes. Izuku wrapped his arms around Shudo again and Shudo draped one of his arms around Izuku's waist. Izuku got up on his toes, his lips brushing against Shudo's ear. I knew you had a thing for me, Shouchin, he whispered. Can you please not? Shudo pushed Izuku off of him again and backed away, making some space between them. Uncanny, Izuku laughed. Effendi, seriously? Dabi groaned. Ah, Dabi, are you jealous? Toga teased. Piece us off. Oh, I'll give you the love you crave, my touch-starved boy. She bounced over to him and straddled him in his seat, ignoring his growls for her to leave him the hell alone and resisting his pushes. What did I do to deserve this? Shigaraki mumbled from the bar. Shudo had a seat next to him and sighed, feeling his pain. This is a serious organization for serious individuals, Kurogyari lectured them. Right? Shigaraki sighed. What a bunch of idiots. Not that much of an idiot since I got into UA on the written exam results alone, Izuku said. Guess I'll see you there then, Shudo said from his seat at the bar. Shigaraki smiled, thinking about the plan that was finally in motion. Good. So, our time has finally come. He folded his hands on the bar top. You will never know what hit them. Time flew faster than the speed of light, and now, it was time to start classes at UA. Izuku, of course, was late. He whistled while he walked the empty halls looking for his classroom. 2C. He paused before going in to put on his most exasperated and worried look. He giggled and got himself back together. All right. He pushed the door open and stumbled in with a yelp. Oh, I am so sorry for being late. Just who I was looking for, the homeroom teacher said. Since you missed introductions, why don't you do yours now? Yeah, sure. He shuffled to the podium in front of the chalkboard and cleared his throat. Yeah, my name is Izuku Midoriya, but you can just call me Izuku. That is all. He seems kind of weird, yeah? One kid in the middle of the room whispered to the girl next to him. The girl nodded. Ah, I hope to be great friends with you all. I mean it. Izuku smiled and made eye contact with the boy, a flash of, are you sure you want to F with me? In his eyes. The other student was quiet and tried to look away, hoping if he didn't look anymore he would just disappear to a safe place. Okay, so that's that. Nice to meet you all. He went to take the only seat that was left empty. That kid's an a-hole, the guy next to him said. His sleepy eyes fell lower but didn't close as he drew obscure cats along the side of his notebook paper. His purple hair stood up all over and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Ha! He wasn't that bad. I'm sure he won't give me any issues. Izuku said that last part a little louder as he took out a notebook and pen. He sighed. Hopefully, Shudo was doing okay with his class. He really wasn't the most personable guy. Shudo Todoroki. Shudo introduced himself to his class. All eyes went wide, and one kid raised his hand eagerly, his black and blonde hair bouncing. So, like Todoroki? Like Endeavor? Shudo was silent. He knew he'd have to deal with the questions about his name and his background, the scar covering a quarter of his face. He sighed. Yes, but please just call me Shudo. I'd rather not get into all that. He never wanted to talk about that name, that family, that man. He was a coward and more of a villain to Shudo than he and Dabi combined. Enji Todoroki bred kids like dogs, birthing child after child waiting for a masterpiece. Enji Todoroki needed a hero, and the first of his children he tried to build up was Dabi. Enji Todoroki trained the boy, molding him into a great hero, forcing him to be the best through screaming and violence, late-night sparring sessions, and even later-night beatings. Until Dabi had had enough. Enji Todoroki decided Dabi was useless to him, his quirk mediocre, and made more kids. Then he got Shudo. Born with multicolor hair and mismatched eyes, he was certain to fulfill his goal of being the greatest hero. Dabi saw it too. The boy was being left to the same fate as he as early as the age of 5. "You look exactly like him," his mother said to him as she wiped away his tears from crying over his little brother, and when he looked in the mirror, he realized he did. He looked exactly like this heartless hero, and he knew he didn't want to be anything remotely like him. So, he ran away, he mutilated himself with burns and cuts and piercings, he changed his name over and over again until he was completely unrecognizable. Until he completely wiped Todoroki from his identity. Then, he was approached by the League and figured, why not? In this time, though, Shudo was left to fend for himself in the care of his father. He was left to become his father's greatest creation. Until the training and the beatings and the screaming. Until his mother couldn't take it anymore and threw boiling water in his face. Until Shudo himself didn't think he could take it anymore either. Different from his older brother though, Shudo didn't run. He was scared of what kind of life was behind his front door, afraid of what would come of the rest of his family if he fled. He didn't know if it was worth it. Until he met Dabi. They crossed paths one night, one of the latest Shudo had ever been out. Shudo was taking a walk at 3 in the morning. He was tired, but he just couldn't sleep no matter how hard he tried. Dabi was walking as well, hitting a 24-hour convenience store for a midnight snack. They passed each other on the sidewalk, Shudo stopping in his tracks, hesitating to look back. Shudo. Shudo looked back at the sound of his name, Todoroki blue eyes finding his own. I knew it was you. Even after you did all of this to yourself, your eyes are exactly the same. Is it happening to you too? Dabi asked, concern in his voice. How can you tell? Your face. He pointed to the scar. The mark wasn't as grotesque now as it had been when he was a child. It had faded to a deep red and smoothed out. It could almost be played off as a birthmark. Almost. What are you now? Like 14? Shudo nodded. Dabi hummed and turned, beginning to walk away. Get home, it's late. Wait, Shudo called, his mouth moving before his mind could catch up. Why, how, what are you doing now? Dabi stopped and turned with a small sympathetic grin. Would you like to see? I can show you what I do. I think you'd like it better than being Endeavor's dog. It's a much simpler lifestyle. Shudo nodded. He wasn't really against seeing how the other half lived, and he definitely wasn't against seeing what other options he had that could be better than going home to the man of his nightmares. Come on then. They walked together, Shudo chatting shyly with Dabi and answering all of his questions about his life and if he wanted to be a hero too. Back then, Shudo wasn't sure what he wanted to do. Now, as he stood in front of a room full of people dying to save the world, he knew being a hero honestly wasn't for him. Everyone was quiet and staring, except for one spiky blonde-haired boy. So familiar. He took his seat in the back of the class and sighed, the girl next to him glancing at him and looking away quickly. Both of the villains dragged through classes until they were finally blessed with lunch PRD. Izuku immediately jumped up, tossing his pen in his notebook, and sighed. Catboy looked over at him and stood up slowly, closing his notebook with the pen inside. Do most people stay on campus for lunch or go out? I don't know what I want to do. Izuku asked, not really directing it to his neighbor but still okay with input. Cafeteria. Lunch Rush is pretty good at what he does. Guy. Hitoshi. Cool Hitoshi. Toshi. Taken. Can I call you that? Izuku smiled sweetly. Yeah, I guess, Hitoshi responded, stuffing his hands in his pockets and heading for the door. I'll walk with you, yeah? I'm still getting a hang of the place. Izuku followed behind him with a small smile. Yeah, that's cool. Shudo headed for the cafeteria for lunch too, a couple of his classmates trying to talk to him as he did so. Shudo knew he needed to befriend as many of these losers as possible to really make him trustworthy to them, but he just didn't want to. Hey, you're heading to the cafeteria too? Sit with us. One girl with brown hair said, hurrying to walk next to him and dragging along a boy with glasses and another girl with green hair and a serious tongue problem. Wait, did she just rib it? I guess, Shudo said, not even looking in their direction. I'm Ochako Uraraka, by the way, and this is Tsuyu and Tenya. Nice to meet you. She went on chatting all the way up until they were inside the crowded cafeteria getting their meals and sitting down at a long table. Even then, she was still going, Frog Girl jumping in every now and then and Specs nodding. Shudo looked around the cafeteria, his eyes bouncing from person to person until he landed on a mop of green hair sitting across from another just as messy purple head. Izuku must have felt the eyes because he turned and smirked, making direct eye contact with Shudo. He watched Izuku put one finger up in front of Purple Man and say something along the lines of, "I'll be right back," before bouncing over to his table. Spiky Blonde's attention turned to Izuku as he skipped over and squeezed himself in between Shudo and Tenya. "Shaochin, I haven't seen you all day." Izuku tried to hug him and Shudo stiffened his elbow to keep him away. "Jesus," he groaned. "Your tie looks horrible." Izuku laughed, rubbing the back of his neck, a tine of pink staining his cheeks. "Yeah, I'm not so good at tying a tie yet." "You made new friends." The other students sitting at the table stared at him with a raised eyebrow until Tenya stepped in and kicked off the introductions. Ochako and Tsuyu followed, Ochako's attention going away from them again. She was exchanging glances with another girl with a long black ponytail. Shudo knew her as the one he sat next to. "Cute girl. It's nice to see Shaochin getting along with you guys. I know he's not the friendliest. I'm Izuku, by the way." "What class are you from, Izuku?" Tenya asked. 2C, General Studies. "I just transferred in 2, but I can't really stay to chat. Just wanted to check on Shudo, I left my friend over there. See you around." Before he got up to go, though, he leaned over whispering in Shudo's ear, "Be nice. You know what we're here for," and patted him on the thigh. "'Kay, bye-bye." He waved as he walked off only to be stopped in his tracks. "Kaken, nice to see you again. How the F did you get in here? You don't even have a FING quirk. And that's where you're wrong, babe. That's okay though. We'll talk later." Izuku tried to push past him, but Katsuki only grabbed his arm to hold him there. "No. You'll answer me now." Shudo watched this exchange. Everything about it so familiar to him, a nauseating sensation rising in the pit of his stomach. He hadn't felt it in so long. Without thinking, he got up from his seat at the table, ignoring the yells from his classmates, and met Izuku and Katsuki in the middle of the cafeteria. "I figured it out. I know how I know you now." "Kaken, stop." A kid screamed, followed by 3 little explosions. Shudo stopped and looked through the bushes that lined the sidewalk, trying to find the source of all the racket. There were 2 little boys, around 6 or 7, just like him. One with messy green hair and one spiky blonde. The green-haired boy wiped his eyes, seemingly crying, and the other laughed maniacally. Shudo frowned at the sight but didn't say anything. "Stupid Deku. All you do is cry. What a loser." Blondie yelled and set off more blasts. The other boy tried to dodge them and failed miserably. "What are you looking at?" Shudo's sister asked, already a few steps ahead since she hadn't realized Shudo stopped. "Oh, nothing," he said, backing away from the bushes and running to catch up to her. "You sure?" she asked when he was back at her side. "Yup." "All right then." She ruffled his hair. "Fuyumi, cut it out." He laughed, ducking from under her hand. Fuyumi and Shudo walked home from school together since her school was so close by, and even though their father said he was old enough to walk on his own, Fuyumi felt like he was still too young. So, he would wait for her to get out of school and get him, so they could head home together. Ever since Shudo saw the boys through the bushes, whenever they passed on their way home, he'd take a look to check on the green-haired boy. He felt bad for not speaking up, but it wasn't his business, and this kid had to learn to be strong on his own like his father taught him. Things never got better though. If anything, they got worse, and Shudo couldn't help but wonder why this person would allow himself to take that kind of torture. He watched this play out for months until his father realized Shudo and Fuyumi were walking home together every afternoon, and he said Shudo was being spoiled and needed to learn to be independent and get himself to and from on his own. Since he wasn't leaving as late, he never saw the boys in the bushes again. Until Izuku showed up at the villain's lair and he saw Katsuki today in class. "You bullied him," he said to Katsuki with a sour look. "You set off explosions on his skin and tossed him around like a rag doll when you were kids. I used to see it every day when I was a kid too. Now look at you. At it again." "Get lost." Katsuki rolled his eyes at Shudo and dragged Izuku closer to him. "You don't even know what you're talking about." Izuku sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. "I get you're mad, Katsuki, but do we really need to do this right now? What do you think you're doing?" Shudo pointed at his grip on Izuku's arm, his face totally expressionless. "Mind your FNG business, Scarface." Shudo visibly tensed and balled his hands up into fists at his sides. Izuku noticed and immediately realized that must be a touchy subject for him. This was going to get real bad real fast. "Whoa, boys, let's play nice," Izuku said, putting one hand on Shudo's chest and the other on Katsuki's shoulder. "I'm sure we can all be friends. Let's not cause a scene. Get your hands off me before I kill you." Katsuki slapped Izuku's hand away and stormed off. Izuku smiled apologetically at Shudo and nodded a silent understanding. He was going to hear about this later. To already have connections at this school could be a blessing or it could be a curse, and Shudo needed to be sure it wasn't the latter. "Later," he said, pointing Shudo to his table and heading back to his own. "Love triangle already?" Hitoshi asked dryly. Izuku laughed and shook his head. Not yet at least." Hitoshi grinned at that. "Nice. My money's on Two-Face. Not only is he FANG gorgeous, he held his own against Katsuki Bakugo with no fear. Came through like your knight in shining armor and everything. He did come to save me, huh?" Izuku's smile morphed into a smug smirk. "Interesting." And interesting it definitely was. Shudo carried himself like he was so indifferent to the world and completely emotionless. He acted like everyone was a burden and Izuku was just so annoying, but when he thought he was in trouble, he stepped right in to save him. To protect him. Maybe the ice wall Shudo built was starting to melt. Yeah, he did, but two is always better than one. Katsuki may be a gaping a-hole, but he's crazy hot. Look at those arms. Izuku laughed with Hitoshi, not going into too much detail or giving an actual opinion about either of the boys. Izuku couldn't really let his guard down, but this guy seemed pretty cool. Not superhero crazy or anything, just a normal, regular guy. Izuku could get used to him. Maybe he actually made a friend on his own. Maybe. Shudo and Izuku planned to meet up at the front gate once school was out. Izuku made it there first. He and Hitoshi walked together and exchanged contact information. "Here comes your man. Let me get out of here before he thinks I'm trying to steal you," Hitoshi said. Izuku waved Hitoshi off with a chipper. "Bye, Taken. See you tomorrow." Hitoshi waved back and wiggled his eyebrows with a smirk as he walked away. "Who's that?" Shudo asked, standing behind Izuku. Izuku whipped around, reaching up to hug Shudo. "My new friend." He threw his arms around Shudo's shoulders, forcing him down into a hug. Shudo just let it happen. He knew he wasn't going to win if he fought it, so he just let Izuku do his thing until he heard a group of familiar voices. "Let's go." Shudo pushed Izuku off of him by his waist. He knew it was his classmates by the sound of Siro's laugh. He had been listening to it all day long, and Katsuki screaming every possible obscenity. "Okay." Izuku grabbed Shudo's arm and latched elbows with a giggle. "I can't believe you're letting me do this stuff. Whatever. Fighting you isn't going to get me anywhere. It's a waste of energy." Shudo looked back, half the class already staring at him as he locked eyes with Katsuki. "And I don't like him or the way he looks at you." "Oh." Izuku looked back, his eyes meeting a girl with a long black ponytail. She looked away quickly, Katsuki taking her place in the staring contest. Izuku smirked and turned back, smiling up at Shudo. They walked to the train, well strolled really, because they weren't really in a serious rush to meet with the league. What's your deal with Katsuki anyway? Shudo asked. Izuku looked at him with a blank face and said, "He killed me." That's interesting. Isn't it? I loved Katsuki more than anything, and though he had a sheet way of showing it, I know he loved me too. If he loved you so much, why did he treat you the way he treated you? He didn't know any better back then. We were little kids. He learned from that. Granted, I don't know what he's been up to since we've seen each other last, but I know he's not the same person he was. Then what happened? He was blessed with something I wasn't. He had what I never could. He was given more opportunities than I was, and the whole world told him, convinced him, he was better than me in every way and I wasn't worth his time. So, he left me in the dust, along with everyone else. We grew up together. He was my first everything. My first friend, my first love, my first kiss. He was my first F-, believe it or not. When he went off to UA to become a great hero, I chose an alternate lifestyle and never spoke to him again. Do you still love him? Izuku smiled at the question. I'll always love Kaken, but it could never be just me and him. It would never work. Ever. I accepted that when I killed myself. Killed yourself? That's an interesting way to put it. Izuku Midoriya committed suicide at the end of middle school. He was weak and nervous and too vulnerable. Izuku Midoriya was everybody's piece of sheet punching bag. I kept the name as tribute to the boy that once was, but he's long gone. Shudo hummed and nodded. He saw what Izuku was saying and completely understood. If anything, he admired Izuku for doing what he needed to do to become the person he wanted to be and move on with his life. He seemed really accepting of himself, especially compared to how he was talking about his old self. I'm pretty content with my life right now. I'm at the school I dreamed of as a kid. I think I made a friend for once in myself. I'm following my dreams. Everything is happening the way it should. Wow. You actually made yourself sound pretty cool. I was already cool. Izuku pushed Shudo jokingly, making him grin just a little. No, you weren't. You just seemed like a salty, annoying smartass. I can still be a slot for you, Shaochin. Izuku stuck his tongue out and laughed. I can't even believe I'm talking to you. Shudo rolled his eyes. Don't say anything else to me. He climbed aboard the train with Midoriya right behind him, laughing uncontrollably. The gang's all here, Midoriya said with a warm smile when they arrived at the hideout. Shudo walked in with a groan and sat at the bar on a stool between Shigaraki and Dabi. Zuzu, come sit. Toga yelled. Izuku skipped over and sat on her lap, letting her nuzzle his neck. We have a curfew in the dorms. Let's make this quick. I want to get soba and take a nap, Shudo said. There's literally, like, 30 chairs in here. Why do you need to sit on her lap? Dabi growled at Izuku. Izuku and Toga shared glances before Izuku asked in a sugary sweet voice, Oh, did you want me to come and sit on your lap instead, babe? Shut the hell up and give us your report. Izuku doesn't think he's ever seen Dabi blush so much. Hell, he doesn't think he's ever seen Dabi blush at all. Just ignore him like I do. Shudo waved his hand around. You don't do a very good job of ignoring me, Shaochin. Izuku hopped off Toga's lap and shimmied over to Shudo, squeezing himself between his legs and throwing an arm around his neck, leaving his other hand on his thigh. See? Ignore him. Shudo leaned back against the bar, letting Izuku's hand fall in his lap, and folded his arms, looking everywhere but at Izuku. This is unreal. I'm out of here. Dabi got up and treaded out of the bar, letting the door slam behind him. Unrequited love can be a real beach, Toga said. Oh my god. Can we just have, like, one normal FING serious but meeting? I don't want to hear anything but details on the way UA is being run, or I will literally disintegrate your goddamn necks. Shigaraki yelled. And you? He pointed to Izuku. Sit in a FING chair and relax your diamond hormones, you horny bestiard. Shudo is the only one I can tolerate around here, and that's pretty sad because I hate him. Now that that's all clear, let's get serious. Izuku snorted and sat in the seat that was once Dabi's. He kicked it all off talking about what pro heroes are on campus and security features he researched. Shudo let them in on the hero program, the teachers, and the curriculum. Shigaraki took what he could out of the conversation to formulate the next step in their form of action. Hopefully this actually works this time, Toga mumbled to herself. Shut up. Shigaraki rolled his eyes. Yo, Shudo. Shudo stopped and turned at the sound of his name. He kept mostly to himself, so he didn't speak much with the other students unless they spoke to him or invited him to spend time with the class. When he saw Hantashiro and Denki Kaminari bouncing over to him with wide smiles, he figured they'd be asking to hang today, it being the weekend and all. What are you up to? We're going to the movies with the other guys. Want to come? Denki asked. Yeah, we're catching that new Best Jeanist flick. Hanta added in. Oh no. Shudo shook his head. I have plans with a friend today. Okay, so it wasn't exactly the truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Shudo had plans with his two good friends Dorito and YouTube. He was going to relax in his dorm room with a ton of junk food and binge-watch old Vine videos to his heart's content. He also considered adding checking on Izuku to his plans for the day to, make sure he wasn't up to anything that would hinder their assignment. Well then tell them to come too. Is it that boy you're always with? We wouldn't mind his company. I would mind, Katsuki groaned as he passed them in the hall. Shudo frowned. This guy was such an a-hole. Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to come. Shudo emphasized the word, come, making Katsuki stop in his tracks and turn back to him with a nasty snarl. What the foo? I'll go get dressed and give him a call. Let me know when we're leaving. He walked in Katsuki's direction, keeping eye contact, and bumped him with his shoulder when he passed. You want to fight me, punk beach? Whoops. My bad. Shudo smirked and kept walking. Chill, man. He apologized, Denki said, trying to calm Katsuki down while Hanta held his other arm. No. That. Katsuki fought against their hold. I'll text you. Hanta yelled to Shudo, and Shudo only threw a wave over his shoulder. Once he was completely out of sight, Katsuki relaxed, only growling at Hanta and Denki, I hate that candy cane piece of shit. We know, honey, Hanta said. We know, Denki said too. F you too. Shudo, back in his dorm room, plugged his phone into his charger and went to texting Izuku about going to the movies. Before he got to put the phone down, he saw the typing bubble pop up, go away, and pop up again. Izuku, are you asking me on a date, Shuchin? Shudo, hell no. Izuku, you don't have to be shy. Izuku, I had plans with a friend today. Are you okay with him tagging along? Shudo, yeah, because it's not a date. Izuku, okay, love will meet you there. Shudo rolled his eyes and tossed his phone on the desk. He felt a weird flutter in his stomach and pressure in his chest that he hadn't experienced in who knows how long. Was it excitement? He hasn't been excited for anything in his life for so long the feeling was totally foreign, and on top of that what did he even have to be excited about? Definitely not some stupid hero movie, even though Best Jeanist was kind of hot in an American model type of way, and he definitely wasn't excited that Izuku agreed to come. He didn't care if Izuku came or not. It was just more comfortable to be around a person you actually know, right? He changed into a fitted, white V-neck t-shirt and gray distressed jeans, so he actually looked like he wanted to be there and sighed when his phone started buzzing again against the desk. He read the text from Hanta directing him to meet them at the front door, so they could all head to the theater together. Shudo texted back a thumbs up and grabbed his phone and wallet before heading downstairs. Literally the whole class was there besides a few. Shudo mixed himself in standing with Tenya, Ochako, and Momo. Were you all waiting for me? Shudo asked, looking at the crowd of noisy teenagers. You and Bakugu, and I think Ishido. Momo answered quietly. Oh, I didn't mean to keep you all waiting. I'm sorry. Nice skirt, by the way. He gestured to Momo's white skirt covered in a sunflower pattern. Oh. She blushed. Thank you. Mina blasted down the hall, joining everyone else. Bakugu said he doesn't want to go. She held Kirishima's arm and tried to catch her breath. Figures, Kirishima sighed. Let's go. They took the journey to the movie theater, cracking jokes and playing around the whole way. The gang made sure to keep Shudo included in everything, and he felt exactly that. He had to admit he was actually having fun with them. Izuku was already there when the others arrived. He and Hitoshi both were swiping on their phones but still spoke, showing each other pictures and laughing to themselves. The rest of the students made their presence known with screams and loud laughter. Shudo even had a small smile as he walked side by side with Tenya. Izuku looked up from his phone at the noise and immediately made eye contact with Shudo. Shudo smiled a bit more and quickly tried to wipe it away to save face, but it was too late for that. Izuku grinned and grabbed Hitoshi's hand, dragging him to meet everyone else, and Shudo pushed through the group to catch Izuku first. "Hey," Shudo said to Izuku and nodded to Hitoshi. "Hi." Izuku smiled. "And hi to all of you guys. I'm Izuku and this is my good friend Hitoshi Shinso. It's nice to meet you." The others introduced themselves and Izuku ended up fitting right in, striking up a conversation with Tenya and Ochako. "I need, Hanta turned around counting everyone as he spoke to the ticket person. "Like 15 tickets for A Hero's Way. Everybody pay up." Everybody that actually heard him started pulling out their wallets and throwing money Hanta's way. "Here." Shudo handed him the only cash he had, a $50 bill. "That'll take care of me, Izuku and Shinso here. You can call me Hitoshi. Let me pay you back." He took a $20 bill out of his wallet and Shudo waved it away. "Don't sweat it. A friend of Izuku's is a friend of mine." "How sweet. I can see why Izuku likes you so much." "He doesn't like me. He's just a flirt." Shudo snorted. "Sure about that?" "What?" Hitoshi scoffed and rolled his eyes. "You're dense too. That's cute. Like a deer." "Wah." "Here." Hanta handed his tickets as he went through the crowd. "Who didn't get a ticket?" Shudo handed Hitoshi his ticket and went to find Izuku. He was still talking with Tenya, both of them in their own little world. "We got the tickets." "Here." Shudo handed Izuku his ticket and he thanked him with a sweet smile. "Let me keep it." Shudo waved. "Let's go in now so we can get good seats. There's like 80 of us." "Okay." He took out his phone and turned back to Tenya. "Give me your number and we'll hang out sometime." "Okay, sure." Tenya took his phone and entered his information before Izuku ran to catch up to Shudo. "You too." Shudo pointed to Hitoshi. "Let's go. Do you guys want to get popcorn?" Izuku stopped before they passed the concession stand. "Do you?" Shudo asked. "What's a movie without popcorn?" "I'll get it." Hitoshi started making his way to the concession stand. "Wait, you can't carry all of that by yourself." Izuku followed behind him, Shudo tagging along. They all got their popcorn and drinks and shuffled into the theater to take a couple seats in the middle. Not long after the previews started, the rest of the group poured into the theater nice and loud. "Sit the F down and shut the F up." A familiar voice yelled. Guess Katsuki decided to come after all. It got quiet faster than expected and the movie began. Throughout the film, Shudo couldn't help but look to his right at Izuku's completely enamored face. He was so engaged in the movie, smiling with wide eyes at the screen. When the action was up, so was Izuku, covering his eyes and peeking through his fingers, and when it was down he clung to the arm rests, hovering over the seat with wide eyes waiting for what was going to come next. He had never seen this boy honestly happy and excited about anything. It made him feel a little warm too. He looked to his left and met Hitoshi's knowing eyes. Hitoshi turned back to the screen without saying a word and Shudo did the same, not without sneaking one more glance at Izuku's beaming face. "It was so good," Izuku said with the flail of his hands once the movie ended. He went on about his favorite parts and how exciting the story was. The others came out behind them just as rowdy as they entered. Denki joined in adding his input and then Ochako and Toru. Katsuki and Kirishima were of the last people to exit the theater, Katsuki's eyes landing on Shudo, Izuku, and Hitoshi. He approached them swiftly, hands in his pockets, and a frown on his face as Shudo stepped up to him. "Oh," Hitoshi said, grabbing Izuku by the arm and pulled him out of the way just in case. "What's up?" Shudo asked Katsuki as he folded his arms. "Let me talk to Izuku." Katsuki stepped closer. "For what? Is that your FING business? He can decide on his own if he wants to talk to me or not, D-head." Shudo furrowed his eyebrows and looked Katsuki up and down. "Izuku." "It's okay, Shaochin." He stepped up to Shudo's side and toyed with the hem of his t-shirt. I'll talk to you, Kaken, but not here. Not like this. I'll come to your dorm tonight. Katsuki nodded and stormed off, glaring daggers at Shudo in the process. This is either going to SCK really bad or really, really good, Izuku mumbled with a grin. Let's get out of here. I need time to prepare for this train wreck. He took Shudo's arm and Hitoshi's hand as they left the theater. Shudo and Izuku walked with Hitoshi back to his dorm and stayed together for a little bit to talk about school, their friends, regular life. Shudo wasn't really keen on making new friends, but Hitoshi was different. He didn't try too hard to fit in with them, and he actually had a lot in common with him. He could see why Izuku took to him, and he could see himself hanging around this guy even on his own time. Give me your number, Hitoshi demanded Shudo right before he and Izuku left to go back to his dorm. Oh yeah. Shudo grabbed Hitoshi's phone to enter his details, and if he wasn't mistaken, Hitoshi had a very small smile as he took his phone back. I'll see you guys. Hitoshi waved them off, and they walked together quietly to Shudo's dorm. Izuku didn't see the point in going to his own room to get up and go over to that building anyway, since he had to talk to Katsuki. Plus, he got to be around Shudo for a little while longer, even if it wasn't much. Shudo's room was dark, even with the light on, and it was so comfortable for Izuku he could move in tomorrow without a second thought. White sheets and paintings on the walls, books filled out a case next to his desk, and everything else was neatly tucked away in drawers and on shelves. It was so normal. Shudo sat on his bed and Izuku followed, taking it upon himself to lay his head in Shudo's lap and get comfortable. What do you think you're doing? Shudo asked. Not annoyed, not anything. What does it look like I'm doing? Wait, don't answer that. Izuku laughed. So dirty. Shudo rolled his eyes with a tiny smirk. You haven't even seen dirty. Izuku closed his eyes with a knowing smile. I'm not even going to ask. They got quiet again, a comfortable quiet, no noise but the students on the other side of the door and the leaves shaking on the trees outside. Shudo leaned back against the wall, trying not to look too hard at Izuku's sleepy profile, his soft face lit up by the small desk lamp, but he just couldn't help it. Every freckle and eyelash, the loose strands of hair falling over his face. He wanted so badly to just move them out of the way so he could see more of his smooth skin that was hiding underneath, and that alone was weird. Where did that come from? Why would he think that? When had he ever thought of this guy as anything other than annoying and vulgar? When did he get freaking adorable? See something you like? Izuku asked with his eyes still closed. I can feel you staring. Get off of me. You're making me hot, Shudo said, lacking the venom he intended. Can't you just use your quirk to fix that? You don't sound too convincing. Izuku rolled over onto his back and looked up into Shudo's eyes with a smile. Do you like me? He asked, and Shudo essayed his teeth. You're not all that bad. Tolerable. I like you though, Shudo. Izuku sounded totally serious, but he was still grinning up at Shudo with wide eyes sparkling even in the dim light. No, you don't. Izuku's smile got wider until his eyes were squeezing shut. I'd never lied to you. He picked himself up and bounced off of the bed, smoothing out his shirt and stretching. It's getting late. I'm going to go to Kaken's room. Shudo nodded. A piece of him didn't like what this talk could do. It wasn't that he was jealous or anything, or so he thought. He just didn't like all of the possibilities something like this held. Anything could happen, anything could go wrong, and he just didn't want Izuku to get himself into a mess he couldn't get himself out of. Do you want me to? Shudo cut himself off. His mouth started to dump out the question before he could catch it. It's okay. I'll be fine. He's not all that bad. Shudo scoffed. Whatever. I'll see you. Izuku waved and closed the door right after Shudo tossed up his own wave. His face immediately fell into a frown and he sighed. Was this what rejection felt like? He called Katsuki for the room number and followed his directions, the door already open when he got there. Shut it, Katsuki told him from his seat on the bed. Okay. Izuku closed the door before skipping over to the bed and sitting cross-legged next to him. I missed you, Kaken. Shut the hell up. What are you up to, Deku? You disappear for 16 months and then pop up at my school claiming you're going to be some kind of hero with some FING magical quirk that came out of nowhere. You don't act the same, you don't talk the same, you don't even FNG look the same. Are you disappointed? Izuku asked innocently. No, I'm effing annoyed. What happened to you? That's a good question. Izuku looked down at his hands and frowned. You happened to me, babe. He propped himself up on his knees to lean closer to Katsuki. The world hated me from the day I was born. I was born quirkless and plain and awkward. I was nothing and then I found you. You made me fall for you and then you snatched it all away. You decided you were better than me and left me in the dust. You let me follow you around like a puppy, you made me feel like someone was in my corner, you showed me love, you f'd me silly, you gave me something to look forward to look up to, and then you took it away because you could. Everyone said I was worthless and I didn't think you would do that to me. You ended up being the icing on the cake. I never asked for any of that. I didn't ask you to even fall for me. Katsuki looked more surprised than Izuku thought he would. He thought this was all common knowledge. You're totally right. I chose to love you and give you all of me because you were my everything. You were all I had and all I knew. I thought you knew all this. I wanted nothing more than to be half as amazing as you, Kaken. Izuku inched closer to him, practically in his lap now, as he cupped his cheek. You know that'll never change. He dove into a hard and sloppy kiss, Katsuki tensing up and Izuku biting his lip with a whine begging him to just let him have this. He slid his hand from his cheek to his shoulder and dug in his nails, a light scratch over his shoulder and down his back as he tossed his other arm over his shoulder and crawled fully into his lap. What the F are you doing? Katsuki groaned against Izuku's lips. You don't have to act like you didn't miss me. Why else would you be so upset? He trailed kisses across his collarbone and up his neck. That's why you hate Shudo so much. You still think I'm all ours. Right, Kaken? He bit down hard on Katsuki's shoulder, making him growl before he could stop himself. He grabbed Izuku's waist to move him but stopped short as Izuku liked his way up his neck to his ear and nibbled on his earlobe. Why are you even here? Izuku stopped. I don't understand the question. He looked Katsuki right in the eye. Any trace of soft sweetness was gone. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Katsuki stared right back. I could say the same thing. The way he said it with the look in his eyes made Katsuki's blood run cold. That was a warning and definitely not something he'd expect from Izuku. This wasn't the boy he knew. This was a monster, a demon inhabiting the person he hated to. Admit it, cared about so much. This Izuku reeked of manic and evil. He was plotting, Katsuki could tell, and he knew it was bad. Look, I'll level with you, Katsuki. Izuku's tone got more serious and Katsuki shuddered at the sound of his name rolling off of Izuku's tongue. Don't think Izuku Midoriya is here in front of you. I'm not here for you or to be your beach. Things have changed, I have changed. Izuku Midoriya is gone. I'm going to show you and everybody else that I can be great too. It'd be in your best interest to get with the program. Izuku kissed him one last time before sliding off of his lap in the bed. And as for Shudo, it'd be best to at least be cordial. The F, is that supposed to mean? Him. Katsuki folded his arms. I think you two could be good friends if you just give him a chance. I like him a lot. I think you could too. You like him a lot? Katsuki raised an eyebrow. Yeah. He's really sweet, so I hope you can at least get along. I want you to be able to keep being great. Izuku smiled. Katsuki cringed at that statement. Izuku was insinuating something and it left a really bad taste in his mouth. There was definitely some kind of scheme here that Shudo must be a part of. Wait, Katsuki said just as Izuku was about to open the door. Do you really have a quirk now? Izuku laughed and nodded, looking at Katsuki with a devious grin. Yeah, I do. I'll see you around, love. He dismissed himself and closed the door behind him without risking looking back. Katsuki Bakugu has been watching Izuku. Between classes, in the halls, during lunch, after class, through the window when he skipped with Shudo and that purple-haired bastard. He watched Izuku chat and laugh and flirt. He also watched when Izuku's eyes shifted nervously, when he was lost in his own thoughts. Or that brief moment when his happy facade cracked. Ever since their little talk, he felt like he had to watch Izuku. He needed to know what was going through his head, and he felt like Izuku knew what he was doing but just didn't care. But it wasn't Izuku who knew Katsuki was watching. Of course, Izuku could feel the stares like any normal person, but he just brushed it off. People stared, it happened all the time, what did he care? On the other hand, Katsuki's watching made Shudo very uncomfortable, and for a number of reasons. It's because you love him and you want to protect him from big, bad Katsuki Bakugo. Hitoshi teased when Shudo told him about the situation. Oh, shut up. Shudo rolled his eyes. That's not the case. It's just really creepy. I can give you that, but are you sure it has nothing to do with your repressed feelings for Izuku? He's still not over the way you rejected him, you know. I didn't mean to reject him. I mean, I didn't stim. Why do you think I have feelings for him anyway? This. Hitoshi waved his hand up and down in front of Shudo. The way you act, the way you talk. It's plainly obvious, but don't worry about it. It's not like I'm telling him. He smirked. Whatever. Back to Katsuki. Back to Katsuki. Why not confront him? You know what? Scratch that. That's a fight waiting to happen. Exactly, and I'm really not interested in that kind of attention. Shudo frowned. He really didn't want to blow this all out of proportion. This wasn't even his problem. Izuku was a big boy. He could take care of himself, right? So, why was Shudo waiting for the class to empty so he could handle Bakugo on his own? What do you want from him? Shudo asked, cornering Katsuki so he couldn't leave. I don't FNG know what you're talking about. He tried to push past Shudo, but Shudo stood his ground. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Why are you watching him? Shudo crossed his arms and waited for an answer. What is he to you? Katsuki matched his posture, refusing to back down. Does it matter? Exactly. So why do you think you have any right questioning me? Shudo hated to admit it, but he actually had a point. What went on between Katsuki and Izuku had absolutely nothing to do with him. So what possessed him to jump to Izuku's aid once again? You've been watching him for weeks. But his safety is my top priority, and if I feel in the slightest that you are jeopardizing his safety. Top priority? You FING threatening me? You his FNG bodyguard? Katsuki cut him off. Oh, I get it. You have a little crush. What the F are you talking about? You like that BSRD and that's why you feel like you need to babysit his little butt. Well, newsflash, he doesn't need you. Let me warn you about something because I feel like being nice. All Izuku is good for is making you feel something, crushing you, and then leaving you to pick up the FING pieces. He doesn't care about you or your feelings. All Izuku cares about is Izuku. Thanks for the warning, but I don't need it. Shudo put his hand up. You never answered my only question. He's up to something and I'm going to find out what it is. Are you FNG done interrogating me, Officer Dickbag? Katsuki was clearly determined, even to Shudo. Now get out of my way before I make you move. Shaochin? A small voice called from the doorway. Oh. Katsuki and Shudo both looked over to see Izuku in the doorway. His face was unreadable and then changed into his signature smile as he sauntered in. Hey Kaken. You two okay? Izuku asked when he got close enough, hopeful for a certain answer. Shudo sighed and nodded. Yeah. Everything's good. Katsuki scoffed and pushed himself through them, making Izuku stumbled from the contact. Shudo grabbed his arm to steady him and groaned. A-hole. Hugh, Katsuki growled back. Well, wouldn't that be a pretty picture? Izuku mumbled with a grin as he folded his arms. Phew. You sick BSTRD. Katsuki barked before quickly leaving. Shudo rolled his eyes and grabbed his bag to leave too, Izuku following behind him. What was that about? Izuku asked. I asked him why he's been watching you, Shudo answered honestly. Oh, he was really bothering you, huh? Yeah, he was. Why didn't you say anything? I really didn't notice unless he was right in front of me. Nor did I really care. I don't think about Katsuki much anymore. They were quiet again until Izuku stopped in the middle of the hallway twiddling his fingers, and Shudo stopped when he realized Izuku wasn't there anymore. Are you all right? Shudo asked, walking back over to him. Can I ask you a question? You don't have to answer if you feel uncomfortable. Izuku began. Shudo nodded. Go ahead. Well, I just really needed to ask. Do you like women or? I'm sorry if I'm being too forward. It's fine. I'm bisexual, but I lean more to men. Oh, okay, Izuku said, looking quite relieved. Why do you ask? Just wanted to make sure I wasn't barking up the wrong tree. Izuku smirked like he wanted to seem confident, but something was still off. Let's go. Shudo was more quiet than usual for the rest of the day. He only spoke when spoken to, answered questions he was asked, and made a noise or a grunt to confirm he was listening. He had a lot on his mind, the main thing being Izuku once again claiming to be interested in him in a romantic way. It wasn't a big surprise, but it was still surprising. He seemed so serious about it, so honest, and on top of that, Shudo just didn't get why he cared if he was serious or not. Izuku really did like him? Like that? Even as they sat with the villains for business purposes, Shudo was clearly out of it. Seeing Izuku vulnerable like he did in the hallway made Shudo feel something different from what he was used to. Izuku being nervous and self-conscious and just human made Shudo want to tell him it was okay to ask him questions and to come to him. He wanted to tell him anything he wanted to know and get to know him too, and that was a problem. Shudo didn't do friendship. He didn't hang out, he didn't socialize, he didn't open himself up to others. Yet here he was doing all of the things he never thought he would. You okay, Sho? Izuku asked, his hand on his shoulder and his eyes actually worried. Yeah. Shudo ran his hand over his face. I'm fine. Just making sure. You looked a little out of it. Izuku squeezed his shoulder with a small smile before letting go. Shudo tried especially hard to stay focused now. He didn't need him worrying, that only made it worse, especially knowing what kind of situation they were in. 1 month, Shigaraki told them. In 1 month we take on UA. I want every pro hero on that campus trying to take us on. I want them all dead. That reminded Shudo and Izuku both, this is a job. A job they have no choice but to do well and right at. School, friendships, even love. None of that could be real, not in this line of work. No matter what. Shudo thought about it more when he got back to his dorm and as the night went on. 10 turned to midnight and midnight turned to 3 a.m. Everything they planned was coming full circle, and it was bittersweet with his newly developed, possible, maybe feelings. A knock on the window made him jump, and when he turned to see Izuku pressed against the glass, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch upward. Hey, Izuku said, crawling through the window once Shudo opened it. It's after curfew, Shudo said. Duh. Izuku laughed. I was up and knew if I texted you, you would just ignore me, so here I am. You're right about that, Shudo mumbled, and that made Izuku laugh, that sweet, almost infectious laugh again. Why are you even up anyway? You're going to be tired for class. Shudo plopped down on his bed and Izuku joined him. I'm not worried about that. I just couldn't sleep. I was thinking about everything and I talked to Tenya and I felt so awkward because, you know, and I know I shouldn't even care about that, but I actually like him as a friend, but he can't be my friend and… He stopped and raised an eyebrow at Shudo's small smile. I'm rambling, huh? Yeah, you are. Sorry. Izuku blushed a little. It's fine. I know how you feel. It's strange to have feelings. Yeah. Everything was silent. In the world at 3 a.m., you could imagine only you existed and it would feel completely accurate. There's no one else, nothing else. Not a noise, a distraction. Total nothingness. Were you really serious? Shudo asked. About what? Izuku asked, a little confused. When you told me you liked me. Were you serious? I'd never lie to you, Shaochan. Izuku smiled and brushed Shudo's hair out of his face. That's good to know. Shudo naturally leaned into his touch. He hadn't felt anything NTMT like this since he was young. His mother would hold him, running her fingers through his hair when things got rough and he needed someone to comfort him and tell him they loved him. Light as feathers' fingertips dusted across his forehead and his jawline. Izuku cupped his cheeks with both hands to gently raise his head and look him in the eyes. Were you serious? Shudo remembered how he responded and how Hitoshi told him time and time again. Izuku felt so rejected. That was never his intention, to make Izuku felt like he was unwanted. He just didn't know what to say or how he felt. He still doesn't know how he feels, but he does know what to say at this moment. No, Shudo shook his head. That's good to know. Izuku ran his hand through Shudo's hair with a soft smile. Well, Hitoshi said from his seat on the fountain. He and Izuku decided to leave class early today. It was boring, and they were only reviewing for a test they already prepared for, so why not? So, Hitoshi feigned illness and Izuku stepped up and offered to take him to the nurse's office. Instead of the nurse, they opted to go get some air in their usual spot around the fountain. Well, what? Izuku asked, sipping his juice that they had bought on the way. Don't play dumb. Hitoshi laughed. You were MIA the other night. All night. So which one was it? Or was it both? He grinned. Izuku laughed, pushing his hair out of his blushing face only to let it fall back over his eyes. Shudo and I. We didn't do anything. Didn't even kiss. I don't think he's ever done anything, and I mean anything. Izuku emphasized. You think? Hitoshi began. I think. Izuku nodded. Isn't that cute? Not only is he adorable, he's all pure. It's like a dream. Hitoshi cooed. I know, right? I've always thought about being someone's first everything. Then he'll always be stuck on me and only me. Oh. Another voice crept up on them. Like you've always been on me? Exactly like that, Kaken, Izuku said, getting up from the fountain. But then again, I'm not the one following me around and watching me like some lowbrow stalker. You Effengi, why aren't you in class? Katsuki said with a frown. Why aren't you? Izuku asked with a smirk. It was fun to tease Katsuki since he always responded, and the more you toyed with him, the better it got. That's my class. Katsuki pointed up to the windows and made eye contact with Momo. She quickly looked away only to turn right back after a couple seconds passed. Everybody in that row can see you dingy around out here. It's effing annoying. Then don't look. Hitoshi said, and Izuku snorted. Who effing asked you? Why the f? Are you even still here? Get lost. Katsuki barked. Hitoshi got up from the fountain, looming over Katsuki before saying, You're lucky you're so cute and I'm a bit of a SST or I would tear your butt apart. He patted Katsuki's shoulder and waved to Izuku before going back to the classroom building. What do you need, Katsuki? Izuku's tone was different, eerily similar to the night in Katsuki's room, and the echo of his own name in Katsuki's ears made his body quake. Izuku never gave him the chance to forget, he's a stranger to him now. I have a question and you better effing tell the truth, or I'll kill your butt. Izuku rolled his eyes at the threat and looked up into the windows Katsuki pointed out before, a patch of red and white peering down at them. He hummed just as the patch faded away. Ask me whatever you want to. Izuku smiled. How long is it going to be before you disappear again? You don't want to be a hero, right? Why are trying to make a effing mockery of me? Izuku whistled and shook his head. That's pretty loaded. Especially for you, Kaken. What are you getting from this? Shudo peeked his head around the doorway, glancing between Izuku and Katsuki looking for any kind of hostility, and when Izuku's posture changed to folded arms and raised eyebrows, it was Shudo's time to step in. Shoutchin. Izuku smiled when he saw Shudo zooming over to them. I saw you in the window. I know. Shudo threw his arm over Izuku's shoulder and glared at Katsuki. Even Izuku looked surprised as Shudo scooted himself closer and tightened his protective hold. Do you not effing see us having a conversation? This has nothing to do with you, half and half. Katsuki growled. What did I say to you the last time we spoke? Shudo asked calmly. And what did I say to you? Come on you guys. We don't have to fight every time we're together. Anything you have to say to me, you can say to Shudo. I'm sure you're just as uncomfortable with him as you are with me. Izuku said with a small smirk. Whatever. Katsuki rolled his eyes. Both of you can just get the F out of here. Leave Yua before you do something you'll regret. You talk like you know more than you're putting off. Shudo frowned. He has a point. Izuku grinned at him. What do you think, Kaken? What am I supposed to know about? Katsuki asked with his own smirk. Maybe now they'd fess the F up and he could get rid of them for good. Something about them rubbed him the wrong way. It wasn't fear, but he was highly uncomfortable. He felt unsafe. There's really nothing you need to know. There's nothing you need to worry about, Kaken. Izuku shrugged. Ifenji liar like always. Ouch. Izuku laughed. That's so harsh. Isn't it, Shaochin? It is, Shudo said, glaring right at Katsuki. So, Kaken, baby. Izuku filled in the gap between them, bringing Shudo along with him. He caressed Katsuki's cheek and laid his hand on his chest. Be a good boy and let me do my job. Okay? Who the F do you think you are? Katsuki swatted his hand away. Don't talk down to me, you piece of shit. You're done. Shudo squeezed himself between Izuku and Katsuki, close enough to look down at him like he dared him to try anything. Izuku. He snapped his fingers and pointed to the door back into the building, his eyes never leaving Katsuki's. Go. Okay. Bye. Izuku skipped away, but not without giving Katsuki a mocking grin first. You'll get enough of trying to protect him. Katsuki turned to head back into the building. Shudo waited until Katsuki was entirely out of his view before dropping his guard and plopping down on the edge of the fountain with a huff. Interesting. Hitoshi walked over to him and stood over him holding 2 cartons of milk. You know, I'm starting to think the two of you aren't being very honest about yourselves and your motives. With everything I see and everything I hear. He sipped his own milk and he just looked so smug. Shudo looked up at him, and though he didn't want to care what Hitoshi thought of him, he couldn't help it. This was his friend, and he wanted his friend to know him and understand him and trust him. He didn't want to lose his friend, which was ironic because that was his whole job. Izuku said he needed to do his job. Hitoshi offered out the milk to Shudo. Tell me everything. Shudo stared at the milk. He could never tell Hitoshi about himself or about Izuku, but something in him begged for it. He finally looked up to meet Hitoshi's eyes and nodded, not meaning to agree because virtually he couldn't, but he knew he needed to talk to someone that wasn't a villain and wasn't Izuku. His mind was clouded with doubts he wasn't allowed to have, and he needed clarity. But not here. Let's go. He got up to lead the way and Hitoshi only nodded and followed. He pulled out his phone when he got to his room and Hitoshi collapsed on the floor. Aizu. Shudo said as soon as he heard Izuku's hello through the phone. Izuku smiled at his new nickname and laughed when Shudo attempted and failed at correcting himself. But, like nicknames, Shaochin. Call me whatever you want, babe. What's up? Come over. Oh, sounds hot. Not like that, pervert. Izuku could practically hear Shudo rolling his eyes and he laughed. Shudo was still playing hard to get, don't know why. It was clear he had a soft spot for Izuku, and Izuku made it known how he felt about him. The ball was in Shudo's court, and Izuku just couldn't wait for him to shoot. It can get like that if you let me. Wouldn't that be fun? Izuku said in that sultry, sweet voice. It was quiet on the other end of the phone until Shudo scoffed and said, just get here. Izuku hung up the phone and laughed before skipping to the Class 2A dorms and up to Shudo's room. Shaochin. Izuku sang, opening the door to find Shudo and Hitoshi lazing around, Shudo sitting on his bed against the wall and Hitoshi sprawled out on his stomach on the floor. Taken, are you skipping the rest of the day too? Or is this something else? He winked. It can be whatever you want it to be. Hitoshi winked too. Kanki why? Izuku smiled. Would you stop? Shudo sighed. All right. Izuku bounced over to the bed and slid between Shudo's legs, laying his head on his chest and wrapping Shudo's arms around himself. Anyway, I won't talk unless Izuku does. This is as dangerous for him as it is for me, and I don't want to put him in a dangerous situation. I want him to stay safe. He looked down at Izuku and met wide eyes and cheeks dusted a light pink, his freckles sticking out even more. You worry about me? Izuku asked. You two can get all sentimental once I'm gone. Hitoshi grinned. To be honest, I feel like you're going through something with Bakugo, with each other, and with yourselves, and I'd like to help. That's sweet, Izuku said. But there's no way you could help us in this situation. How would you know if you don't tell me about it? I heard you say to Katsuki you had a job to do. I don't know if you think I'm going to judge you or what, but I want to give you the chance to confide in me. This is a safe place. Shudo and Izuku looked at each other. To talk or not to talk? Shudo has been feeling conflicted about everything, and Izuku has too. They made connections, created friendships, found a place they could actually fit in. They had so much potential to be happy here and with these people, but they weren't allowed to feel that kind of happiness. Not with their lifestyle, and the last thing they wanted to do was get someone involved, or even hurt, for something that didn't have anything to do with them. What if they told Hitoshi their story and he got hurt for it? Izuku wouldn't be able to live with it. Shudo would never forgive himself. You can tell me. Don't worry. Hitoshi said. Izuku smiled at Shudo softly, the look in his eyes saying, maybe we should. Shudo nodded, smiling back at him, and they turned to Hitoshi. Look, anything we tell you stays between us. You don't know, okay? We're trusting you with our lives, Hitoshi. Shudo explained. Hitoshi nodded. Got it. Talking about their pasts was easier than they imagined. Of course, for Shudo, there were such touchy subjects, like his father's abuse and the scar on his cheek, and Izuku found it tough to talk about Katsuki and the loss of his father, but they went through it, trusting everything about them to Hitoshi. Everything including their reason for being at UA. It's time. After speaking with Hitoshi, the boys' doubts only grew worse. At this point, they weren't sure that giving up this life, their friendships or each other was actually worth it. After today, everything they'd gotten comfortable with would be no more, and that was so sad. They'd have to go back to the life they had. Sad, lonely and pointless. They didn't want to lose this. I was told my whole life my quirk was made for villainy and I could never be a hero no matter how hard I tried. I know how you feel, but just because everybody told me to be a villain doesn't mean I have to listen to those a-holes. Hitoshi explained. I decided, helping the people who wouldn't help me and judged me for something I couldn't control wasn't my cup of tea, so I'm going to finish high school here in case I change my mind, and if not, go off to college somewhere. Not be a hero, not be a villain. Everything isn't so black and white. If you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it. Izuku kept thinking about what Hitoshi said to them. Not so black and white? Just don't do it? That all seemed too simple. Who even says he doesn't want to do this anymore? This was his job, the thing he planned for, waited for. It was his chance. Yes, he met people who he grew to like a lot, a person he may even love, and even opened his own eyes to other possibilities, but that didn't mean he could just up and forget about the one goal he had etched in his mind forever. He still wanted to be strong. He still wanted to be somebody's hero. He waited at his favorite park on the rough side of town, remembering where this all began when he met Shigaraki. He and Dabi were waiting for the time to come for them to get going. His white, button-down shirt was uncomfortable and starchy under the black vest, and his neatly done thanks to Shudo black tie made him feel like he was choking. This Essex. He whined. Oh, shut up. Dabi groaned from his own swing. Why am I the only one who has to dress like this? I won't even be doing anything. I could have dressed like normal. Quit your whining. Someone would have seen your stupid t-shirt and even stupider hair and known exactly who you are. Shigaraki needs you. We can't risk it. You think my hair's stupid? Izuku pouted. Dabi stopped, a slight blush creeping across his cheeks because as much as he didn't want to say it, he had to admit Izuku was cute. Cute and confident in the fact that he was FNG adorable, and when he got up from his swing only to slide his hands in his breeds pocket and strut around out of what seemed like boredom, he was stuck. I hope Xiaochen's okay. Izuku sighed and that snapped Dabi right out of his trance. You and Shudo, Dabi said. Izuku stopped and turned to him with the slightest grin, so small the twitch of his lip could have easily been missed. What about me and Shudo? He knew where this was going. Dabi was attracted to him, clearly, but he needed to hear it from him. He wanted Dabi to say it. Why would it matter? Do you like me? He fluttered his eyelashes. And what if I did? Izuku snorted. That'd be very cute. Are you together? Dabi asked. The words hung limply in the air. Izuku smiled. We spend a lot of time together but we're not dating. Dabi nodded. Not yet at least. Izuku finished, slinking back over to Dabi and grabbing the chains of his swing. He leaned over him, kicking open his legs to stand between. I know, Dabi, and it's okay. I know how it feels to want something you can't have, especially when someone is taking it right in front of you. Izuku ran his hand through his hair, leaving it on the nape of his neck. Dabi was dying. All he wanted was to touch Izuku. His arms, his chest, his perfectly freckled cheeks. He wanted to grab Izuku's waist and drop him into his lap, run his hands through that thick, messy hair, but he couldn't. Izuku wasn't his to want. I belong to Shuto, Izuku said as if reading his mind. Whether he knows it yet or not. I'm his. He left a kiss on his cheek and backed away, pulling his phone out of his pocket. Let's go. We have a job to do. He walked away, phone to his ear, and Dabi followed quietly. Rejection hurt, but he knew he wouldn't get over this anytime soon, especially with Shuto flaunting him around in his face. That alone made it hurt even more. We're moving, Izuku said into the phone. 13 minutes. Izuku took the briefcase Dabi was holding for him and they walked quietly to the meeting point where Shigaraki and Kurogiri were waiting. Kid's already there. Said everything's in place. Toga and Twice are waiting with the Nomus, Shigaraki said. Dabi nodded, getting a quick glance at Izuku before Kurogiri warped him to his designated location, leaving Izuku, Shigaraki, and Kurogiri at the original meeting spot. You have it yet? Shigaraki asked. Of course. Izuku smiled and opened the briefcase to pull at both his mask and the Campos notebook he used. Here. He handed the notebook to Shigaraki and he skimmed through it while Izuku put on his mask, covering his face, freckles and all, and the bunny ears over his head. He pulled up his gloves and loosed his tie, ready for whatever would come his way. His phone vibrated, and he pulled it out, smiling fondly when he realized it was Shuto. Stay safe. Shigaraki closed the book, grinning like he had everything he needed. He scratched his neck, laughing about how perfectly the plan would go until he stopped, regaining his composure. Izuku glanced at him and Kurogiri, and once the warp gate opened, his stomach sank. Something felt wrong. Shigaraki patted him on his back with a light push towards Kurogiri. Go! Shuto stood casually by the front gate of the school, exactly where he was supposed to be, and early at that. It was the middle of lunch PRD, so there were students everywhere, teachers lingering around, and the air smelled of relaxed naivety. He pulled out his phone, taking a look at the little heart Izuku texted him, and smiled a bit. Why not just F him and get it over with? It's not like he won't let you. Katsuki said, leaning against the gate next to Shuto. F you, Shuto said calmly. Even though he's trying to call my man a slut and I can't get with that, he has a point, Hitoshi said as he walked up and leaned on the gate at Shuto's other side. You like him, he likes you, why not? Where is he anyway? His mom is sick, so he went home to take care of her. He said he should be back in a couple days. Shuto explained. Oh, hope she gets better. Hitoshi nodded. Why are you over here anyway? Not like I have anything better to do. Hitoshi shrugged. I don't know about this a-hole though. He jabbed his thumb at Katsuki. I can hang out wherever the hell I want, Katsuki growled. All I wanted was to know where shitty Deku is, and now I do, so you both can SCK my D. There was a boom, loud enough to shake the whole campus, followed by screams across the campus. What the F dash? Katsuki said over the sound of alarms and screaming students. Shuto was silent, his face completely blank besides one raised eyebrow, and Hitoshi looked at him like he was begging for this not to be what he thought it was. But it was, and Shuto had nothing to say. There was nothing he could say. Hitoshi sighed. Attention all UA students. They heard over the loudspeaker. All students with hero licenses please report to the rear yard for active duty. I repeat, all students with hero licenses please report to the rear yard for active duty. All other students and designated staff, retreat to a designated safe space immediately. Immediately. Active duty? Katsuki questioned. Students too? Shuto also asked out loud. He and Hitoshi watched Katsuki take off before exchanging confused glances at each other and running after him. How are you confused? You knew this would happen, Hitoshi said, his voice disappointed. Yeah, I knew it would happen, but not like this. Early and in the wrong place. These many students weren't even supposed to be involved. They bent a corner and slowed down when they caught sight of Katsuki again, frozen between the trees. Villains. Villains everywhere. Way more than Shudo expected. It looked like Shigaraki hadn't learned his lesson and recruited a bunch of low-grade villains to join the cause, but there was also a lot of nomus running around. Shudo pulled out his phone to see if he missed a signal change or alert from the league, but there was nothing. He knew he would never be careless enough to miss something like this, so why didn't he know? Sheet. He looked around looking for something until he followed Hitoshi's eyes to the on his left side. That? Hitoshi whispered. Shudo hummed. Yup, that was him. Izuku stood on the roof of the building next to Shigaraki, one hand in his pocket, the other clutching his briefcase, handle, and his posture casual. His head turned in Shudo's direction, and even without seeing those gloss green eyes, Shudo knew he didn't want to be up there. Hitoshi, Shudo said, grabbing his shoulders, go home. Not your dorm, not the designated safe spots. Now. Hitoshi nodded, his eyes lighting up in hope for his friends. Maybe they'll turn this around. Maybe they'll change. He ran off back in the direction they came, and Shudo watched for a moment before shedding his uniform jacket and loosening his tie. Katsuki. He slapped Katsuki on his back, making him jump. You got a license, right? Don't f-ing touch me. I have a license, but you don't, so f off. He ripped off his own uniform jacket. Good to hear. Shudo rolled up his sleeves and darted through the trees. FNG stupid. Katsuki went off in the other direction. He stopped short, looking back at Shudo still running on his own. God if a... Halfie! He ran to catch up to him before he got too far. No matter how much he didn't like him, he was still his classmate, and leaving him alone in this situation was not heroic one bit. Izuku watched from the roof as his friends from both sides fought, and it made his stomach wrench. He sighed watching teachers get thrashed around by nomus, arms twisted, and legs snapped. Students laid in the grass hurt, maybe dead. It was too hard to watch. Your notes were perfect, Shigaraki said. Without them, we would have just been guessing on what we were dealing with. This nomus are perfect to take on anybody, unstoppable. I'm glad, Izuku lied. Every time he looked out at the madness beneath him, he worried hard about his friends. His friends and Shudo. A little while ago, he saw Shudo, Hitoshi, and Katsuki together behind the trees. An odd group, what with their relationship dynamic, but just the right group Izuku would want to see. He was happy to see them all together and safe. They were all important to him, and he was relieved to see Hitoshi flee when he did. Then Shudo and Katsuki left his field of vision, worrying him half to death. Not because he felt like they couldn't take care of themselves, but because he didn't want them to have to. Shudo was never supposed to fight. Twice was supposed to meet him at the gate and make him a duplicate. He was to freeze the front gate once lunch PRD was over and everyone was back in class. After the front gate was secured, he'd do the same thing to the rear and then set off the alarms while his duplicate was in the classroom. Student involvement would have been minimal since UA needed to keep their public image together by keeping the kids safe, but Shigaraki figured, go big or go home, and plans changed. Shudo was supposed to be here with him, safe and sound, while he held his hand waiting for this to blow over. You really are, like, our hero, Shigaraki finished, and Izuku wanted to die. He thought this was what he wanted, what he dreamed of, but it ended up being his worst nightmare. All he could smell was blood. He stepped closer to the ledge to look over, and his eyes fell on a red and white smudge, a black smudge bouncing behind it. Shudo, he whispered to himself in relief. Behind his mask, Izuku smiled until Shudo stopped moving, and the yellow he assumed to be Katsuki stopped moving. Huh. He squinted his eyes trying to see better, and the world started to suffocate him. Oh no. No, no, no. He ran for the door to the stairs, going down and out, ignoring Shigaraki's calls to stay where he was. He was moving on impulse now, jumping downstairs and over railings in the stairwell, darting outside when he finally got to the end, and finding his way as best he could to Shudo and Katsuki. Please be okay. This cannot be happening. He ran, choking down tears, and when he saw the ice tear through the trees and heard explosion after explosion, bigger and louder each time, those choked tears turned to sobs. Katsuki ran behind Shudo trying to catch up as he yelled insult after insult, trying to get him to at least slow down. In this situation he couldn't be alone, neither of them could. Shudo took off to get to Izuku as fast as he could. He didn't know what the hell was happening, and the first thing he needed was to make sure Izuku was okay, but then he smelled burning oil. Engine fumes? Then a crash and a yell. Is that? Shudo slowed down, the smell getting stronger until he was eye to eye with a Nomu, tall, big and bulky, with eyes practically black. Ah, it said when Shudo and Katsuki stopped. Aijuru! Katsuki ran over to him as he slumped against a tree, his body seemingly lifeless. He grabbed his shoulders, shaking him around. No response. You better not be effing dead or I'll kill you. His voice cracked as he held him to his chest. More kids assist. The Nomu groaned. Tenya, Shudo said and waited for a response. There was wheezing and then a breathy "yeah" from Tenya as he kneeled against that same tree. Can you move? More wheezing and then no. Shudo nodded. This was bad. Looking at Tenya and Aijuru, they're knocking on death's door, especially if he doesn't at least try to help them. Katsuki too. There's no way he'd be able to take this thing on his own. Maybe he could buy them some time to run, but if he did that, could he take a Nomu on his own? Either way, if he wanted to get out of this alive, he had to fight. Fight and win. I'll blast this beach to hell, Katsuki said, his hands already sparking. Decision made. He can't leave them to die. The Nomu charged at Katsuki straight away. No way. Shudo slammed his foot down, shooting a sharp icicle halfway into the sky right at the Nomu. It dodged, faster than Shudo thought. This must be one of those new ones based off of Izuku's notes. It charged again, Shudo's ice missed and Katsuki's explosions did little to nothing besides pushing it back, and it took the chance between their strikes to make its way around Katsuki and land a hard hit on his back, knocking the wind out of him. What the hell, Katsuki? Shudo yelled, using his ice to let the Nomu close in on him and using his fire to send it up in flames to buy time. I thought you were going to blast this beach to hell. You doubting me? Katsuki smirked, stumbling back onto feet. Die. He made a circle with his hand in the palm of the other to create a concentrated blast right into the Nomu and sent it through the trees. He laughed and plopped down next to Aijuru, grabbing his wrist to check his pulse and tossing it back in his lap when he was satisfied. Get up, Shudo said as he hiked Tenya up on his shoulder. We have to get them to a safe zone. Shudo's body froze at the sound of a questioning hum. He and Dabi stared at each other, each one waiting for the other to say something. Dabi folded his arms and hummed again, taking note of Shudo's pleading expression as he adjusted Tenya on his shoulder. Sad, Dabi said. Get out while you still can if you don't want this. He bounced away, leaving Shudo staring into the spot he once was. Best case scenario, Dabi keeps this between them. He doesn't say anything to anyone. Helping the enemy was the work of a traitor, and a traitor in the League of Villains was a dead man walking. Worst case scenario, Dabi told, and he ended up just like that. Angie move, Katsuki barked, Aijuru on his own shoulder. Shudo nodded and began to drag Tenya along until a cracking branch on his right side made him stop. He glanced back at Katsuki, who was already on the defense. A second later, Izuku popped out of the trees, still donning his mask but his clothes a little more raggedy from the running. Shudo's heart was racing. Shigaraki would never let Izuku run off by himself, so he must have disobeyed orders to come find him. He's going to pay for that later, Shudo was sure of it. He knew what Izuku wanted, and the look of fear in Izuku's eyes made Shudo's heart break, but in this position, there was nothing he could do. If he said anything, he'd blow both of their covers. Show, Izuku began, but Shudo put a hand up to stop him. Izuku scanned him up and down, lip quivering at the blood along the front of his shirt and on his cheek. His blood? Tenya's blood? Either way, it was scary as hell. Same for Katsuki when he saw the blood up and down his shirt and breathes, Aijuru dangling from his arms dripping down his back. He stopped at his eyes and lingered just a second too long because Katsuki's face twisted into that of realization. Shudo looked between the two of them and growled. He knows. It was do or die time. Taking the situation into consideration, Tenya and Aijuru were both down for the count, so the likelihood of them knowing what's happening here, or waking up to find out, was slim to none. They could try to get Katsuki to at least listen to them. Since Izuku was here, it didn't matter if a villain came in the middle of their conversation. They'd see Izuku, figure everything's being taken care of, and go on their way, but at the same time, if he defended them he'd be in the same boat as Shudo. As good as dead. Those eyes, Katsuki whispered. I hate when you stare at me with those eyes. Izuku was shaking as he reached for his mask. Wait, Shudo said. No, begged. I'm glad you're okay, Izuku said, pulling the bunny ears off of his head. I was so worried. For both of you. He took off the rest of his mask with a small nervous smile. I can't even say I'm surprised. Katsuki gently put Aijuru down, and Shudo placed Tenya down too just in case. Honestly, I'm about to hurt you, Izuku, Katsuki said, and Izuku winced. Izuku? No. That wasn't right. He said his name like a hateful stranger. There was no saving this. Not because you lied to me over and fang over again like an idiot, Katsuki went on, but because I'm drenched in the one person I actually care about's blood and I don't even know if he's going to wake up. So, you can fang die. As soon as Katsuki made a move in Izuku's direction, Shudo grabbed him up by the waist, using his quirk to cool his arm where Katsuki was setting off explosions. Let me go. You're both piece of shit liars. Let me go a hole. Katsuki screamed, trying to break out of Shudo's grasp, but he held tight, waiting for Katsuki to tire himself out. Katsuki shimmied around until he could get a hand high enough to set off an explosion right in Shudo's face. Sheet! Shudo pushed Katsuki off of him only to receive a stiff punch to the jaw, making him stumble as Katsuki ran to Izuku. Izuku had fairly decent reflexes, so he was able to dodge a good majority of Katsuki's blows up until he caught him with a blast in the shoulder, knocking him into a tree, his head making first contact. Katsuki yelled when Izuku got up again, holding his head and whimpering at the pain. He charged at him again but was stopped by a wall of ice completely blocking him from Izuku. You've made your point. Shudo approached Katsuki from his side of the wall. I wouldn't have made my point until he's 1 foot in the grave. Or maybe I should kill you. Then we'd be even. Katsuki said and glanced at Aijuru. Kaken, Izuku said, easing his way over to them. I understand if you want to kill me right now. Hell, I want to kill me right now, but I'm sorry. He was cut off by gurgling and then a loud yell, You can't get rid of me. That no. The sound of footsteps was loud, the leaves shaking, and it was fast. Too fast. Izuku! Shudo yelled, but he was too late. Izuku was flying through the very ice wall Shudo made and was crushed against a tree, blood dripping from his nose and mouth, and the sound of bones cracking. He was finished. Too bright. It was way too bright, white lights glaring, and it hurt. Everything hurt. Izuku's eyes opened slightly and closed again. There was a heavy weight on his lap. It wasn't painful, but it was uncomfortable. He tried to speak, but all he could manage was a very quiet, almost unnoticeable groan. Izuku! That voice. Even under the grog in his mind, that voice was familiar. Izuku, can you hear me? Izuku managed to peek one eye open, but it fell back shut, an even quieter groan following. The weight on his lap shifted and then was relieved. There was a gentle brush of fingers across his face. Izuku, please wake up. I know I act like I don't care. I know I act like you're annoying, but I miss you. Open your eyes, please. The voice was fading in and out, and then it was clear enough for Izuku to know. Oh, that's Shudo. That was Shudo staying with him, talking to him, begging him to open his eyes and prove he was still here, but no matter how hard he tried to open his mouth, his thoughts only stayed thoughts. Shudo, I'm here. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm with you. I miss you too. I want to be with you too, Sho. I just want to be with you. He tried to speak, but nothing. Nothing but the little groans like he'd managed before or the flutter of his eyelashes. He tried until he was completely silent again, his breathing slow and melodic. Shudo sighed, fighting the quiver of his lip and the sting in his eyes. He was so close. After 3 weeks of waiting and sobbing in the hospital, he almost had him back. He hadn't realized how much of an impact Izuku made on his life, or how much he actually cared, but now, laying in his lap to create any kind of physical connection, visiting daily, waiting for him to show any sign of being alive, praying to every god, even the ones he'd never heard of for Izuku to be okay, he figured it out. He learned that how he sees Izuku is more than just his partner in crime. He didn't hate Katsuki for no reason, he didn't need to protect Izuku solely for the benefit of the League of Villains, he didn't let him touch him or hold him because he was annoyed and tired of him. He could never be tired of those eyes or that smile or the way he rambled on and on when he didn't know what to do or the sparkle in his eyes when he was excited. He didn't know how he could live without him, and he needed to tell him that if it's the last thing he does. So he waited. As much as he could, as long as he could. Sometimes he'd be there so early in the morning it shocked Izuku's mother, and sometimes he'd stay so late she'd have to beg him to go home and get some rest. They had endless talks about themselves, about Izuku, about the past, and about the not-so-distant future. He had never bonded with a woman, a mother, like this before, especially since he'd been banned from seeking out this kind of relationship with his own. Maybe now that would change. Hitoshi had come to visit a few times within the last few weeks, frowning at Izuku's casts and bandages. Was it worth it? He asked. Shudo was silent. Of course, it wasn't worth it. What kind of dumb question was that? How many people were hurt, killed, in this stunt? How much pain was he put in beside the cuts and bruises he tried so hard to hide from his father when he went home? How could anything be worth losing the first bit of light in the dark abyss that was his life? Shudo rested on his arms in Izuku's lap, closing his eyes to find comfort in just feeling him beneath him. I'm so sorry, Izuku. I know I've said it 1,000,000 times, but it doesn't feel like enough. I should have been faster. I should have done more. I'm sorry. The room was quiet again, only the sound of the cardiac monitor beeping steadily until he heard another groan that was surely louder than the last. Sho! Izuku! Shudo jumped up quickly, the chair sliding back and clacking against the floor. He gently ran his fingers through Izuku's hair waiting for him to do or say anything. Shudo! Izuku breathed. It was the first time he'd heard him say anything in so long. I'm so thirsty. Thirsty? Shudo smiled, his eyes burning again with the threat of tears. I would be thirsty too. Let me get you a nurse. Hold on. He smashed the nurse call button over and over, his hands shaking with excitement and relief. Izuku was here and awake. And alive, and Shudo couldn't be happier. After 3 weeks of not knowing if he would make it out of this. Shudo pulled out his phone with trembling fingers looking through his contacts. Hi, Mrs. Midoriya? I know you just stepped away, but he woke up. I just called the nurse. I'll be here, don't worry. He shoved his phone back in his pocket and grabbed Izuku's hand, bringing it up to his own cheek and squeezing it tight. Izuku smiled faintly with a little hum, his eyes falling shut once again, and Shudo kissed his hand, using his other to wipe his eyes. Hi, Shudo. Hi, Izuku. The nurse finally arrived, shuffling in with a happy smile. What can I? Hi, Izuku said. I'm super thirsty. The nurse froze before smiling again and nodding. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be right back. Izuku's eyes peeked back open and he made eye contact with Shudo for no more than a second, but that second was more than enough for Shudo. That sparkle in his eyes hadn't gone anywhere, and he was so grateful. Izuku! His mother came barreling in, running to his other side and crying uncontrollably. Izuku only smiled, fighting to keep his eyes open, but it was plainly obvious he was tired. Thank you for being here, Shudo, she said through her tears and ran her hands through his hair, leaving a trail of kisses from his forehead to his cheeks. Don't thank me. It's my fault we're here in the first place, Shudo said. I don't know how many times I have to tell you. You did everything you could. You fought for him, you got him to safety, you got him help. You saved his life, Shudo, and I thank you more than anyone. What else can you do from here? It's over now and you're both safe. Shudo hummed. He did what he could at that moment, and that saved Izuku's life, but when he really thinks about it, this isn't over. The nurse bounced back in with both water and the doctor in tow, the doctor announcing how he needed to run some tests on Izuku now that he was coherent. Shudo said his goodbyes, making sure to leave a kiss on Izuku's cheek before dragging his feet outside. He stopped under the hospital pavilion and stared out into the cool rain. It's over now, you're both safe. If only that were true. There were still far too many loose ends for this to be over, and what with the way Izuku gave himself up that day, he was far from safe. It was only a matter of time before the League was forcing him back to them. Back to clean up the mess he made and finish the job he started. Both of them. Shudo knew if he wasn't safe, there's no way Izuku would ever be, and Izuku's safety was his top priority. Boys. He walked through the rain, the setting sun making it even cooler. He left his umbrella back at the hospital, but he didn't care about that or the fact that he'd surely catch a cold. So, you want to get sick? Shudo heard before an umbrella was hanging over his head. Can't stay in the hospital with Izuku if you're sick, right? Isn't that a health hazard or something? Shudo whipped around and met Dabi's questioning eyes, his hood pulled over his own head and Himiko waiting a few steps behind him with her own umbrella and a big smile. What are you doing out here? Shudo took the umbrella. Looking for you. Shudo raised an eyebrow at that. He knew it and of course, they'd send his brother to find him. Maybe Dabi could convince him to come back and talk it out. Yeah. Shudo's mouth curled into a scowl and he took a step back. Dabi put his hands up. Wosho. It's not what you think. I'm not coming back and don't even think about trying to make him. We're done. Hey now. I'm the one who told you to get out while you still could, right? If you don't want to live this kind of lifestyle, you don't have to. Unlike me or her or any of us, you have other options. I get it. I wanted to ask about Izuku. I know you've been seeing him. I just need to know how he is. The look in his eyes went from questioning to worried. Desperately worried with the need to know that he was okay. He's alive. He's been in a coma for 3 weeks. Brain trauma from the impact, but it was recoverable. Shudo explained and Dabi's eyes went wide. His mouth opened and closed like he wanted to say something and Shudo shook his head. Like I said, he's alive. He woke up today. Dabi nodded, clearly relieved. I'm glad he's getting better. I just have to make sure he's all right. Shudo nodded. He's taken care of. I'll make sure this never happens again. Ever. So you know it now. Dabi smiled at the rain-soaked sidewalk. Know what? He's yours. Shudo scrunched his eyebrows. He wasn't sure what Dabi meant by that, but if he was going off of the disappointment and heartache in his smile, he had an idea. He didn't think this was something Izuku would talk to Dabi about unless he needed to, and by how small Dabi looked in this moment, he must have needed to. Dabi clearly knew how Izuku felt about Shudo. So, Izuku had been serious all along. He had been telling Shudo his true feelings this whole time. Just as Izuku told him time and time again, he didn't lie. He'd never lie to him. I guess so, Shudo said. Dabi hummed and gestured for Himiko to come over. She skipped to his side and handed him the umbrella, so he could hold it high enough to cover the both of them. Hi Shudo. Tell Zuzu I miss him. She smiled. Shudo nodded and watched them take off. Oh, Dabi yelled over his shoulder. I never saw you today. You still need to settle this. For both of you. I know, Shudo said. I'll take care of him. Shudo took the long way home, not even bothering to use his quirk to warm himself as he walked, and when he got home his father was there waiting. You have company. Get rid of him. Shudo nodded and slipped his shoes off, making his way to the living room. What the hell? Let me talk to you, Katsuki said from the couch, his hands lying limply between his crossed legs. For what? You know what the F for. Shudo esigi his teeth. Katsuki already knew what he needed to know, so what else was there to say? He sighed. Katsuki did have a right to this, though. Fine, but I don't want to talk where he can hear me. Katsuki nodded and followed him to put on their shoes and head outside. What do you want me to say? Shudo asked. They walked aimlessly through the dark, splashing and bumping umbrellas. Aijiro is finally back to normal. Completely healed like nothing ever happened. I'm glad. That's really good to hear. Izuku's still in the ICU. I see you never cared to visit him. I can't even see him like that. I don't even know what I'd do. Shudo hummed. No matter how much he tried to fight it, it was clear Katsuki loved Izuku and he always would, and Shudo would always be jealous of that history and connection. They continued walking in silence until Katsuki sighed. How's it feel being a shitty traitor? Not too bad since. You didn't rat me out. I'm sure the police will be at the hospital tomorrow to talk to Izuku since he woke up today. I wish this would have never happened. But it did. So, now what are you going to do? Let him take the rap on his own. No way. I can't let anything like that happen to him. I just can't. Yeah, sure. Your family doesn't know you're a piece of shit either, huh? Shudo grinned. Everyone knows I'm a piece of shit. They just don't know the shitty shit I've done. Katsuki barked out a laugh and Shudo giggled a little himself. God, I hate myself. Walking through the rain with Katsuki Bakugo without trying to kill each other. Who would have thought? But Shudo couldn't say he didn't enjoy his company even for a little bit. Shudo and Katsuki walked that night for hours. Then they did it again and again and again. Especially on nights when it rained. They walked so far and so long they couldn't be sure they were even in the same city. The rain came down in buckets, so much so that they spent over 30 minutes hiding under a bus shelter, and in that 30 minutes, they laughed so hard it was almost scary. What the F are we doing? Shudo said through his laughter. If I know. It's never going to stop. Katsuki barked. So, let's effing run for it. But where are we running to, dumbass? First of all, watch your diamond mouth two-face. Second of all, my house isn't too far if we go this way. It's late but I guess I can be even nice for once. Wait, aren't we close to Izuku's house too? Shudo stared through the rain like he could see it and squinted. We went in like a semicircle. Yeah, it's close but I wasn't going to say anything. Who cares? It's late as hell. He's probably not even up anymore. Let's effing go. It's cold as a beach out here. Shudo nodded and they counted to 3 before taking off. They were not secretive at all when barging into Katsuki's house at almost 11 p.m., way out of the norm for him what with the way his mother screamed from the top of the stairs. Where the have you been? It's almost midnight and you think you can just waltz into my effing house like you own the sheet? Answer me, brat. Shut the hell up. I'm here, right? Go back to the bed, you old broad. Is this really okay? Shudo quietly asked after Katsuki dragged him by his wrist to his bedroom and slammed the door. If you're not in my way all night, call your DMN ride or whatever. Yeah. Shudo dug out his phone, the screen lighting up with one message from Izuku under the time. Shouchin. Call me baby. I need you. He coughed, trying to cover up his blush from Izuku's words. He was so cute. Well, Katsuki said, trying and failing at being annoyed. Hold on. Izuku texted me, so I'm going to call him. Whatever. Katsuki stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind himself and eliciting more yelling from his mother. Oh my god, shut up. He yelled. Shudo rolled his eyes and hit Izuku's contact. His face took up the whole screen and the phone rang once before Izuku picked it up, his voice way too bubbly for the time. Shouchin. Hey. It's late. Why aren't you sleeping? Not tired. What a boo. Why are you being so effing noisy? Go the F to bed. Katsuki was still yelling in the background and Shudo sighed. You're at Kaken's house? At almost midnight? Is there something I should know about? What do you know? We went out for a walk because, I don't know, he wanted to talk or something and we got caught in the rain, and it was so late, and his house was close, so we just came here. It's not like... Please, Shudo. You don't have to explain. It's not like I own you or anything. I mean, if you say it's not like that, it's not like that. Izuku tried to laugh and it was one of the saddest things Shudo had ever heard. Of course he'd feel that way. He didn't know anything about what was going on in Shudo's head because Shudo is a FING coward. He was too much of a coward to just speak up. To accept his feelings and open himself up to a person who could actually love him. To allow himself the chance to honestly love him back. Shudo wasn't afraid of Izuku or his feelings for him, he was scared of what he'd do with them. The last thing he wanted to do was hurt him or make him unhappy like he watched his father do to his mother his entire life. I'm sorry, Shudo said. I just... Come over. Wouldn't you get in trouble? What can happen to me? I'll get grounded? It'll be fine. Come see me. Please? I don't bite. At least not hard. Unless you want me to. I mean, we haven't talked about kankes, but if that's what you like. Oh my god, I'll come right now. Shudo stopped him and he cheered. Shudo peeked out of Katsuki's door and it was pitch black, dark, and dead silent. He took one step out and a second later Katsuki was right behind him. Leaving? Thank if dash. Get out of my house. I'm going to come back to speak with you again. You know, not in the pouring rain. That's your thing. PSS off. I don't want to talk about your problems. Yomi, I listen to you all the time. Don't people like us do that kind of thing? What do you think, we're friends or something? Hell no. Later. Shudo took his leave down the stairs and out the door, making sure to grab his umbrella along the way. Shudo had never snuck into Izuku's house before, and since his release from the hospital a week ago, Izuku's mother has been practically begging him to come and spend time with her house arrest-ordered and painfully unfazed son. So now that he was standing here at their front gate deciding between chancing the front door or finding the least suspicious way up to the window, he felt kind of bad for sneaking around behind her back. He really can get me to do anything for him. Shudo groaned just as the front door creaked open. Izuku smiled and waved, motioning for him to come on. Shudo! He closed the door and flung his arms around him, dragging him into a hug. I missed you. It's been like one day, and you're being too loud, Shudo said, laying his hand across the small of his back. Let's go to my room then. Izuku jumped up, wrapping his legs around Shudo's waist, and Shudo sighed, carrying him quietly to the bedroom and closing the door as gently as he could. He tossed Izuku down on the bed, and Izuku giggled, propping himself up on his elbows to stare at Shudo with the most lust-filled look he could muster. Please don't look at me like that, Shudo said, running his hand over his face to stop himself from gawking at Izuku laying across the bed with legs spread and hair disheveled. His shirt lifted enough to tease with a bit of skin and his lips wet and parted. What's wrong, babe? Izuku asked, sitting up on his knees to reach over and take a handful of Shudo's shirt, pulling him until his legs were flush against the mattress. Izuku, Shudo said. Yeah. You. He smiled, eyes expecting, and if Shudo wasn't mistaken, excited for what he figured he would say. Go ahead. His hands found Shudo's hips and climbed up his sides, making their way to his front and grabbing his shirt once more. Shudo scowled and essayed his teeth before taking Izuku's face in both his hands and kissed him like he wanted him to taste his feelings. Izuku melted into him, eating up every unsaid word until Shudo pulled away, liking the taste of Izuku's tongue from his own lips and staring at him like he'd just gotten his first sip of water in weeks and he needed more. I knew it was only a matter of time, Izuku whispered. You're so effing annoying. Shudo grinned. Take this off. I'll get you something more comfortable. Izuku pushed him out of the way and bounced off the bed to go rummage through his dressers, and when he turned back, Shudo was already shirtless with breathes unbuttoned. Oh, I thought you'd be shyer than this, Izuku said while, very obviously, checking Shudo out. What? No. Shudo rolled his eyes. I'm glad. Very. Izuku bit his lip, looking back and forth between Shudo sliding his breathes off and the clothes in his hand. You're such a pervert, Shudo said from the bed. Doesn't seem like that bothers you though. Izuku laughed and handed him the clothes, watching from a seat on the bed as he put them on. So, where are the extra blankets? Shudo asked. What? I mean, I figured we already had enough, and with your quirk, I thought you'd be okay, but if you want one more I can grab you one. Wait, you're sleeping with me, silly boy. Izuku pat the bed and Shudo shrugged, turning off the light and climbing in next to him. Before they knew it, they were being woken up by knocks on the door and a loud, Izuku, come on. You've slept late enough. It's almost 3 in the afternoon. Izuku groaned, nuzzling his face into Shudo's neck and left a kiss before sitting up to stretch. I'm surprised she let you sleep this late, Shudo said, his voice still full of sleep and eyes closed. Yeah, well, you can't do much else when you're on house arrest, babe. Izuku shrugged and threw his legs over the edge of the bed, grabbing a pair of shorts and a shirt from the pile of clothes under his feet. You don't have to get up if you don't want to. Nah, I need to. Have to go shower and have to talk to the Katsuki again. Shudo yawned. You can always shower with me. Izuku stuck his tongue out. And Kaken can wait. I'm sure it's not that big a deal. An offer I have to refuse, and it kind of is. Izuku pouted. You two are so friendly all of a sudden. That's disgusting. He just kept bothering me, so now I'm bothering him. Yeah, I'm glad to see you two getting along. Yeah. Shudo put his hand out and Izuku passed him his own set of clothes. They dressed and stared at each other, snorting at how bad they looked. Dark marks and gross bedhead. Scratches and bites. It was bad and so obvious. Yikes, Shudo said, lightly rubbing his thumb along the mark on Izuku's jaw. I could say the same thing. Izuku smiled, dragging his fingers along Shudo's collarbone. Izuku, his mother called from the other side of the door. You're actually in there, right? Izuku growled and thought for a moment before whipping the door open, revealing his mother standing there with her hand on her hip and furrowed eyebrows. Yeah. Come eat something. Her eyes drifted from him to Shudo standing a few steps behind him, donning a pair of Izuku's shorts and one of his t-shirts, his hair in shambles. Oh. Shudo, honey, when did you get here? He came over last night because I told him to. He slept over and now he has to go. I'm sorry for the intrusion, Shudo said. I guess it's fine. What's done is done. I just wish you would have asked. She frowned. At least eat before you go. You look like you could use it. She looked them both up and down and Izuku snorted. Sure. Thank you for having me. Shudo nodded. Lunch was quiet. Quiet and super awkward because Shudo knew that she knew. Izuku knew that she knew. She knew that they both knew that she knew. Izuku sat next to Shudo close enough for their knees to touch and for him to inconspicuously rub up Shudo's thigh until daggers were being stared into him. As soon as they finished, Shudo said his goodbyes and flew straight home, creeping his way inside and sneaking up to his room. Psd. He whipped around and Fuyumi was hanging out of her bedroom door, waving for him to come in so she didn't have to make too much noise. Where the hell have you been? She said after closing the door. Do you know how hard it is to cover for you all the time? Especially now that your school is on suspension? What is going on with your neck? Whose clothes are these? They need to be gone, stat. Oh my god, Shudo. I was worried about you. Is he here? Shudo asked. She shook her head. Hawks called him to work. He's been gone for a while though, so I'd move fast. I don't know what he has set up around here either, so be careful. He's already pretty mad. Shudo nodded, swiftly going to shower and after getting dressed, weighing his options. He could stay, let his father see that he was home and hopefully lessen the blow, or he could go out, avoid him for a while, and wait for him to forget. They don't see each other much as it is, eventually, it'll pass. He did want to talk to Katsuki anyway. He tossed on his jacket and told Fuyumi what he'd be doing and told her he'd be back home soon. Hopefully early enough to make dinner but late enough that his father would be so overwhelmed with more important matters that Shudo wouldn't even be worth his time. He made his way to the Bakugu residence and knocked, Katsuki's mother opening the door with a big smile. Hey sweetie. What can I do for you? Hello. Is Katsuki here? I really needed to talk to him. Shudo said. Hopefully not about your neck. He's out right now. Did you want to come back later or wait for him? He shouldn't be much longer. Shudo blushed at the mentioning of his neck. He'd forgotten about that. I'm already here so I'd like to wait if you don't mind, but if I'm going to be in the way I can come back later. No. Come in. She stepped to the side to let him in. I'm Shudo, by the way. I know we didn't get to actually meet. You can call me Mitsuki, sweetie. Have a seat. It won't be too long. I mean, everyone acts like Crocs are the worst thing in the world, but like they're pretty cool. They're super comfortable and they go with literally everything. Shudo heard as the front door opened and closed. Katsuki! Mitsuki yelled. No answer. Don't if you ignore me. Hey, Mrs. Bakugu. Ijiru's voice. Footsteps grew louder, getting ready to pass the living room. Katsuki stopped, turning his head at the sound of Shudo clearing his throat and Ijiru skidded to a stop behind him. You actually came, Katsuki said with a scowl. Sure did. Shudo deadpanned. Hello, Idru. Glad to see you doing better. Idru jumped past Katsuki, making his way to Shudo's front and startled him with a bow. Thank you for risking your life to defend me. That was so manly, and I am super grateful. Yeah, sure. Shudo nodded as Katsuki yanked Idru up by the collar. Though you probably wouldn't have needed saving if it wasn't for me and Izuku. You got that right, Katsuki said. Wah, Idru said before Shudo cut in. Anyway, that's what I came to talk to you about. Izuku. Even with this idiot around? Katsuki raised an eyebrow. Shudo shrugged. I wasn't expecting him to be here, but I guess it won't make a difference. Katsuki hummed before jerking his hand as a signal to come, and Shudo rose from the couch, following them up the stairs and into Katsuki's bedroom. Honestly, I'm surprised he doesn't already know. I would think you'd at least tell him. Shut up. I'm not FNG snitch, and I could tell this is rough on you. Not to say that I care about how you feel. You can FNG rot. He slammed the door and plopped down next to Idru on his bed. You couldn't even try to cover your FNG neck? Forgot about it until your mother said something thinking this was your doing. Shudo frowned and Idru furrowed his eyebrows. That's FING disgusting. I would die before I even thought about touching your nasty butt, Katsuki growled. You and me both. Shudo laughed. Idru looked back and forth between them, eyes blown wide and mouth open. Since when did Shudo Todoroki and Katsuki Bakugo become friends? Katsuki is really allowing Shudo to sit here, in his room, at his desk, and isn't trying to kill him. Shudo just laughed at something Katsuki said to him like they're best buddies. Is this real? What is this? The Twilight Zone? Idru questioned out loud. Shut the F up, Katsuki said, his voice more amused than venomous. Anyway, what do you want me to do? I don't give a f about Deku. You're effing him, not me. What? Idru gasped. Even so, Shudo confirmed like it was nothing. I need you to look out for him if shit goes left when I go to deal with the League. Elaborate, Katsuki said calmly. Yeah. I know I don't really have anything to do with this, but it sounds like you're going to the League of Villains to avenge your boyfriend and that's so cool. Idru chimed in. That's not necessarily it. You don't have to give him any details you don't want to, Katsuki said. He's just nosy as shit. No, it's fine. He deserves to know. He was almost killed for it. Shudo scratched his cheek with his index finger, contemplating how he was going to explain this to Idru. Okay, I'll just be straight up. I'm affiliated with the League of Villains. So is Izuku. We helped them with the attack on UA. I don't like the way that played out. I don't like what happened to you, to our classmates, to our teachers, to Izuku. I don't like how it made me feel. I don't like that I almost lost him just because I'm a brat who hates his dad and thought being a villain would make me feel better. It didn't. If anything, I just feel worse. I feel like I'm just as awful a person as him and it's the worst thing ever. So, I'm trying to fix it. Oh. Idru was quiet, staring down at the floor like it knew something he didn't. Like it could help him find his way through this forest of betrayal that grew its way into his heart. He thought Shudo was his friend, a manly dude who went out of his way to give his all for his friends. A hero, but then again, was he not those things just because of the circumstances? I never got to formally apologize to you. So, I'm sorry. Wholeheartedly, I apologize for not only setting you and all of our classmates up, putting you immediately in harm, potentially killing you all, and ultimately betraying you. I know a friendship between us would never happen after all this, but Wait. Why can't we be friends? Huh. I mean, yes, you did do that. Yes, that was absolutely terrible, and I can't say I'm not hurt, but in the end, you still came through for us. Me and Tenya would have died if you and Katsuki didn't find us and stay with us. You didn't even have to stay with Katsuki when you did find us, but you did, and he's alive thanks to that. You saved Izuku too when he got hurt. You saved 4 people that day when you had the option to turn away. You stayed and fought when you didn't have to. I think you weren't even supposed to. Isn't that, traitorous since you were technically on the villain's side? Either way, you were there for us. You turned your back on the villains to help us. You were our hero at that moment, and that's manly as F dash. If you are seriously trying to change, trying to become a better person, I want to be your friend through it. Aijuru smiled and Shudo's eyes went wide. How could he be so accepting after all of this? How could he still want to be friends? I'm done. I've learned my lesson, and Izuku's done too. The thing is, if you want out, there's only one way, and that's in a casket. Like a FING gang, Katsuki said. Like a FING gang, Shudo repeated. So, you're going to go in there and die to save FING Deku like that's going to prevent them from targeting him any further? Wow, I knew you were stupid, but this is unreal. Well, I didn't plan on dying, but if I do, I wanted someone to know. Preferably someone I knew could actually protect him, unlike me. And you think I'm going to protect shitty effing Deku? Katsuki laced his voice in disgust and folded his arms. I know you will. It was quiet. Katsuki stared into the ceiling, delving into his own thoughts. Shudo stared at him, patiently waiting for him to reach a conclusion. He had to admit, this was a lot to ask of a person, especially one you almost had killed. Especially one whose everything you almost took away. Especially someone whose everything you did take away. It wasn't fair. To him, to Izuku, to anyone. Thinking about it, this all seemed pretty selfish. Shudo and Katsuki said at the same time. What? Katsuki barked. No, no, no. Shudo put a hand up. I was just thinking. I'd understand if you say no. This is really a selfish request. No sheet. Not only is it selfish as F dash, but it's also completely stupid. You got so FING lucky and you want to ruin it by running in and trying to be some kind of half-butted hero for your sheet boyfriend. I'm far from a hero. Shut the F up. You're dumb but probably can't even spell hero, let alone be one. Does he even know? How do you think he'd feel when he finds out you're FNG dead because you thought he was too weak to fight for himself? How do you think Aijuru here feels hearing you trying to drag me into this mess? How do you think I FING feel? Do you think I have time for this? You're probably the stupidest person I know, and that's saying a FING lot because I hang around Denki Kaminari. That's a stupid beach. You're so dumb I can't believe you're even sitting here saying this sheet to me. Have you even considered there's another way out of this sheet? He has a point. Kirishima shrugged. Shudo and Katsuki stared him with pouts and raised eyebrows, waiting for him to go on. This really isn't the only way. Did you forget you're connected to the best hero school in the world? You have endless connections to top heroes who will more than likely help you if you just talk to them about your situation, explain what happened, and tell them how you're ready to change. You don't have to do it all alone. You don't have to be a hero. Shudo was quiet, the gears grinding in his skull as those words filled it. You don't have to be a hero. It's not so black and white. Hitoshi's words were back too, meshing in with Aijuru's and making him feel like maybe they were right. Maybe he didn't have to do this all alone. Maybe the heroes would be willing to help him and Izuku get on the right track and become better men. He thought about it, biting his lower lip and staring at a burn mark in the flooring. Who do I talk to? When you live in a society ruled by heroes and villains, you have to pick a side. Right or wrong. Good or bad. There is no middle ground or gray area. You can't be one and the other. You can't play both sides of the fence. This was Shudo's thought process, inner discourse, as he sat in the grass of the Todoroki estate's courtyard. It's been a while since Shudo has really had to be home. Going to school and after-class activities, begging Fuyumi to cover his but whenever he was out late. That was the norm up until lately. Up until the villain attack that was such a shock, and Yue was out, and his excuses ran dry. Now he begged for more coverage, leaving dummies on his futon and tiptoeing light as air. Until his villainous father was looking for him more often, expecting him more often to be home and working hard. Shudo! Shudo cringed at the sound of his name barreling off of the banister. Yeah. He called, rising from the grass and dusting off his breathes. That doesn't look like training to me. Yue may be out, but that doesn't mean you get to laze around my DMN house. Don't make me say it again. Understood. I apologize. Shudo nodded as his father retreated back into the house. Ah. The journey to becoming #1 hero was still on a roll for Shudo Todoroki with or without Yue. It was easy to forget about his purpose when he was living in his school's dorms and his father wasn't breathing down his neck, but now, with school being on hiatus, his options to get away increasingly limited, and his excuses non-existent, he had no choice but to fulfill his role. Well, at least for now. While he was still living in the Todoroki household and banking on Enji Todoroki's support to get by. Funny, he'd say. The world's greatest hero was his #1 villain. In this world, you had to pick a side, and if doing his best to survive this hellhole a little while longer and keeping Fuyumi safe with his efforts too meant he was a hero, he'd be the best hero he needed to be. Things were different for the only girl, the only Todoroki daughter. He couldn't leave her in the dust, leave her to fight and eat the pain meant for him, and it would only be worse if he fled with no warning. Running away and hiding like the scum he was for abandoning her. Right, that wasn't an option. He had to make this work, and so he would. For as long as he needed to. He leaned into a stretch, warming up his muscles for some mild quirk training until his phone buzzed in his pocket. He reached in, pressing accept, and adjusted his headphones for an inconspicuous chat. Aizu. Shudo. Baby, I miss you. Izuku cooed through the phone. You just saw me this morning. Shudo grinned. At this point, fighting how warm he got when Izuku called him baby and told him how much he missed him was futile. Shudo loved the attention, loved how in love. Izuku seemed to be how in love. He was. He supposed using love and Izuku in the same thought was definitely new and interesting, but that was a conversation for another time. Yeah, and now it's afternoon, and I miss that pretty face and those pretty arms and that pretty D. Okay. Shudo laughed. I got it. So? Come on. Please? I'll beg if that's what it takes. He could hear Izuku's nasty smirk. He knew what he was doing, the DMNTs. Of course, Shudo would get hot at the thought of Izuku on his knees begging for, well, anything. Shudo pulled the phone out of his pocket, humming as he checked the time. Give me a minute. I wanted to shoot something by you anyway. He said, pushing it back in his pocket. By me or in me? You're sick, you know that? Izuku laughed, loud and vibrant, a melody that always made Shudo smile too. I'll see you soon. Shudo ended the call to devise a plan. He's supposed to be training. How the hell was he going to get out? He moved to another part of the courtyard farther away from the door. The only way this would actually work would be if he made it look like he was training, slip out, and beg Fuyumi to cover his but one more time, and if he timed it right with the graces of God, his father wouldn't even know the difference. He made a path of ice, melted it, made another, did the same thing a few times over. He burst flames at a tree directly across from himself. Not too far away and not enough to set the DMN thing ablaze, but far enough and big enough to make it look like he was actually doing something. Sheet! He growled as the flame went a little too far and up into the leaves. Too much fire. He hit the same spot with ice to calm it down. His father hated when he made a mess of the flora in the courtyard. That's why he wasn't allowed to train out here. Today was a rare and honestly questionable exception. Whatever. Worst case scenario, his dad got mad and they fought. He'd take it like a champ and keep away for a while. Not an unusual occurrence and sad to say, not an unwelcome one. Staying away from the Todoroki household for a while wouldn't hurt. He pulled out his phone again and dialed, smoothly sliding it back in once he heard the first ring. Fuyumi. How long? She said, her voice ringing through his Bluetooth headphones. I don't know, a couple hours. Maybe. I can never be sure with him. Him. That's risky business. She paused before going on. Don't quote me, but I think he's doing a night shift with Hawks. Wait for him to do another round on you. After that, you should be okay. Should be. I get you. Thank you. Yeah. She hung up. He waited. It's been a while since he last saw him, so he should be coming back around sooner rather than later. Yup. Right on cue, his father stomped across the balcony, eyes peering down at Shudo as he made a scene of ice and fire, using both at the same time and doing a fair job. Shudo waited a bit longer before zipping up his warm-up jacket and making his daring escape. His father actually makes it fairly easy to get away. Getting out is no problem. Well, if you're Shudo and have the practice he has, it's no problem. The issue, though, is getting back in. Even he hasn't mstread that, but with Fuyumi's help, 9 out of 10 times he can come back with no problem. That doesn't make it any less nerve-wracking though. Shudo was quick to get to Izuku's house, banging on the door and greeting his mom politely before slipping into his bedroom. Shaochin, Izuku whined into his pillow, his eyes still closed and blankets pulled up to his nose. Yeah. Shudo lifted the blankets just a bit and tossed them back down. Who begs someone to come see them and then goes to sleep? I'm happy you came. I want to go out. Izuku yawned and rolled into a sitting position. Your house arrest's up pretty soon, yeah? Shudo plopped down next to him and laid his head in his lap. Yeah. Izuku ran his fingers through his hair. Starting tomorrow, I'm allowed supervised outings with an SART, but I still have a curfew, so that SCKS. Better than nothing, Shudo said in time with a loud whoosh of wind, Kurogiri's warp gate forming on the other side of the room. What's better than nothing? Shigaraki asked, bouncing out of the black fog. No, Shudo growled. He jumped up, grabbing Izuku by his shirt and forcing him behind himself. Izuku pressed himself against Shudo's back, his face lacking the fear his trembling body showed. Shudo's stance grew threatening, teeth bared. Haven't seen you guys in a while, but there haven't been any cops at my door. It's so weird. Why don't we all talk, huh? He opened his arms, and after no response, no? That makes sense. Well, then how about just you and I talk? He pointed to Izuku. Hell no, Shudo said, putting out a protective arm. This is over. Oh, then let it be over, Shudo. Shigaraki snapped his fingers and Dabi rushed in through the still open gate, taking Shudo quickly in a headlock, Toga on his other side, knife threateningly close to his eye. Sorry, Shudo, she said quietly. Dabi remained silent. Izuku moved fast, going for the window he was closest to rather than the door, but Shigaraki must have seen through his plan. He hastily grabbed Izuku, all fingers but his pinky wrapped around his neck. You say anything, and I turn you to ashes right here, he whispered in Izuku's ear. Dabi, Toga. We'll deal with him later. Let him take this time to think about how useless he is. Toga lowered her knife and Dabi tossed Shudo onto the hardwood floors with a thump. They followed Shigaraki and Izuku through the gate, the hole closing faster than it opened and fog swiftly clearing. Shudo sat on his knees, eyes burning, and latched onto the spot Izuku last was. Once again he proved himself useless.